1, 2, 1, 2. Hello. Hello, everybody. We are live. I hope you're doing well. My name is Alice, and I am the CEO and co-founder of The Family. At The Family, we believe that anyone can become a great entrepreneur. It doesn't mean that everyone will become a great entrepreneur, but it means that a great entrepreneur can come from anywhere. And that's why with my team for 8 years, we've been providing education, tools, and access to capital to ambitious founders wherever they are. And today, my friends, we are going to focus together on one key topic, one very important topic, which is recruitment. Because you know, the number one reason of success for a startup, the number one reason of failure for a startup is the team. So you'd better choose well your teammates. And right now we are in a very specific time. We are going through an economic crisis, a pandemic, and actually there are some opportunities for you as an entrepreneur to tap in a brand new talent pool, a global talent pool, and we'll discuss about this together during these 3 hours workshops. So I hope you are comfortably seated. I'm very happy to launch this event with you. And actually, I'm even more happy that I know and I've seen the countries where all the participants, the people who sign up, come from. So hello, obviously, France, Belgium, the UK, Germany, Italy, but also Peru, Turkey, Morocco, and even India. I don't know what time is it in your country, but I'm very happy that you are joining us to learn about how to recruit today as an entrepreneur. So, as you've seen, we have a brand new setup. Thanks to Studio Majorel. We love them, and that's thanks to them that we are trying brand new things. We are adapting, as you can see, at The Family as well to the current situation, providing much more live events. So today, my friends, we're going to talk about recruitment. And this event that you are going to attend, these workshops, actually has been made possible because we gathered with brilliant minds, with people who have a real expertise. And I'm talking about the partners who have been with us creating this amazing event. So let me introduce you briefly these different partners. First, there is AWS. Obviously, you know this incredible cloud solution, Amazon Web Services. They are long-term advocates for startups, supporting initiatives dedicated to help entrepreneurs grow like this one. Livestorm as well. We will see the CEO of Livestorm, Gilles. I will be interviewing him. Livestorm is a super efficient, simple and powerful tool for video communication, no matter the size of your company. Also, there is remote.com. Job will help us understand how companies of all sizes can hire top talents all over the world in full compliance with local laws, because that's also important. If we can tap into a new global talent pool, still there are some different legislations, and you need to figure out how to overcome these barriers. Thank you, HireSuite. HireSuite is allowing tech companies to recruit the best developers and regain control of their hiring process. Robin, the CEO of HireSuite, will be with us. Thank you, Coptalis, for supporting talents and expatriates with recruitment, visa, relocation, and training solution. Thank you, Talent.io, the simplest way for software engineers to find great job in innovative companies. And thank you, Talent People, the HR industry leader in France, if you want to also outsource talent acquisition and talent management. Big thanks to all of them. Now, my friends, it's time to get it started. So you're gonna tell me, Alice, the program is too intense. There are so many possibilities. Wow, so many speakers. Alice, I'm lost. And I will tell you, no, my friends, you are never lost, because there is an app for that. You just have to take your phone right now, screen the QR code, and You will have the website with the program. You will be able to directly spot the moments that are the most interesting for you. And of course, you will be able, through this app made for you, very user-friendly, to just in one click access the Slack, because there is a Slack, yes, if you want to connect with each other. These days it's hard to find and to connect with people who are sharing the same passions as you. I'm talking about tech entrepreneurship. So enjoy going on the Slack and connecting with all of the people who are attending this workshop. And finally, my friends, if you are watching us from YouTube or from Facebook, you might be missing the best part of this moment. You are missing to check us on Opin, and actually on Opin you will be able to ask directly your question and to attend the workshop, the interactive workshop, the amazing workshop, and you will join us. I know the link is in the description if you are watching us on YouTube or on Facebook. All right, my friends. So now let's focus on the topic. We're about to focus together during 3 hours on one main topic, which is recruitment. Now, you can tell me, Alice, it is a very strange topic because we are in the middle of an economic crisis, right? Well, actually, this topic is on point. And let me explain you why. It's on point for 2 main reasons. The first reason is that we've been facing loneliness, strict loneliness, lockdown. We've had no other choice than being stuck at home, and we've had to face our own fears, to question a lot also. We've been wondering a lot how to find inner peace. And I'm sure that many of you have been meditating, training, cooking, taking care of yourself, taking care of your relatives. We've been all going through this same experience. And I'm sure that if we could measure scientifically the level of mindfulness of people in 2020, we would see a peak. But anyway, that is just to say that mindfulness doesn't mean happiness. Mindfulness means being more conscious. By being more conscious, it means that we are facing the true questions, asking ourselves questions we might not have dared before to ask ourselves. Am I living in the place where I'm feeling happy? Should I live? Where could I live actually? Am I working? Am I spending most of my time in a company that I really like? Millions of people have been wondering the same question at the same time. This is the first thing that this pandemic has been triggering. And the second thing is that we've all learned suddenly to work remotely, to work apart from each other. We've all learned a new language, and we feel at ease now to achieve the same mission, achieve the same goals while being separated from each other. So 2 effects. 1, loneliness made us ask ourselves the right questions. And 2, now we've learned how to work remotely. And these 2 things created they've been reshuffling the cards. Basically, we now have millions of people who are wondering, where should I work? And that's a talent pool you could be tapping into. Now the question is how. The question is how, and my friend, we're going to talk about it with today's agenda. Let me see this agenda. This agenda is marvelous. This agenda is amazing. This agenda starts with Usama, my co-founder, who will talk about how you need to switch your mindset, switch your recruiting game, because the rules have changed. And then my favorite moment, the chat roulette. I won't tell you too much about this because you just have to experience this moment. Basically, you're going to have random face-to-face meeting. You're going to enjoy. You're going to connect with people. You're going to have fun because we need to enjoy, right? We are separated from each other. Still, we need to enjoy. And let's do it with this fireside chat for 15 minutes. Then, we have, the fireside chat starting. So I will be welcoming the CEO of HireSuite I was presenting previously, Robin, and we're going to focus on talent sourcing in a remote world. Robin, the CEO of HireSuite, will be with Job. Job, who's been for 5 years working at GitLab and who will explain you how to manage, how to recruit amazing people in a remote environment. Then we'll go through the hypergrowth of your remote team with Gilles, the founder of Livestream. I will be interviewing Gilles, actually. Then there is a fireside chat with Alex and Margot about breaking the barriers to hire the best talent. And finally, a panel, the power of culture to retain people, with Charles from Facebook, Julia from AWS, Eleonora from Mindvalley. And I will be interviewing them. After this moment, my friend, it's not done. It's not done at all. After this moment, there are still workshops. And these workshops, they are marvelous. And you will be like, okay, which one should I choose? Because they will happen simultaneously. Yes, I know it's hard. It's going to be hard. But it's okay, because you will have the replay. So you really have to ask yourself, which one would be useful for me now? Because you will be able to ask any kind of questions related to your context right now, to all of these amazing experts that we've been gathering for you today. All right. Now I think it's time to welcome soon someone that I know well. But for those who don't know him, this is Oussama. He's my co-founder at The Family. Basically, he's passionate about entrepreneurship. He's been accompanying founders for more than 10 years now. And since COVID started, Oussama has been directly witnessing the shift in how to approach recruitment. And he will give you the keys to fully grab the potential of these times and to attract and manage top talent. Oussama, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you very much.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Alice, and you?
So cool. Oh, I'm happy to see you. I can hear you.
Very happy to be here today with you. We are going to talk about recruiting online in remote and what does it change. The funny thing is that the biggest impact of remote work is not so much on the hiring process, because by definition, hiring process was already a kind of part remote by definition, but there is few elements that change. The first impact of remote means that you have to be very disciplined. The problem of working remotely is that most of the value of randomness that happen in an office when you meet someone, we all have these stories in mind of, for example, Peter Thiel recruiting for PayPal because he met someone at a park, or Steve Jobs recruiting someone because he sit next to him in a train or a restaurant. All these stories are not happening anymore, and they are not happening anymore because recruiting in remote makes the challenge of recruiting very, very rational. And there is pro for that and cons for that, and it's not so much a discussion about the superiority of remote against any other model. It's just a constatation that right now we don't have any choice, and 100% of the company need to be remote. The question will be, what will we keep from this remote when we will come back to normality? Are we going to all stay remote? Are we going to switch to hybrid model? Are we going back and stay as far as possible from remote? I don't know. I'm not a specialist about the future, but what I know is that in the present and for the next 6 to 9 months, having a great online process will be an investment that will be useful for your company, whatever happen in the future. And that starts with discipline. Discipline is about having every step of the process well-designed, well-thinked, and be sure that everything is happening very smoothly. Also, remote means good writing skills. It's, I think, one of the most hard part of being remote is that most of the communication happen by writing. When you write on Slack, when you write emails, when you write things, it can be very easy to do a miscommunication. I remember one of the most funny story ever. We were having an office in Barcelona one day, and someone in my team asked if a 32-inch TV was enough, and I wanted to say that it was more than enough, and I replied the opposite because of an autocorrect. I didn't really see it. And then we arrived in the apartment with Alice, and we had like this 62-inch giant TV in the front of a 20-meter square office. And we were like, what the fuck, who did buy that? And the employee was like, yeah, but it's you that told me to buy this TV. And that's the kind of story that happen only when you don't pay attention. And again, the discipline of writing well, writing clear, being able to scale through writing is super, super, super important in remote. Remote means also a lot of automation and superpower. So the question is that in your process, you can now implement a lot of tools, use the top of the art in terms of automation, in terms of no code, in terms of having the value of your time really, really respected. So I encourage you to really think deeply about everything that you can automate, everything you can template, where you can have a template, everything you can standardize, everything that you can automate. Automation and standardization are key components of building a great online remote recruiting machine. And that's because one of the impact of being remote is that instead of having a pool of local talent, you have a pool of global talent. And that's the first shift of paradigm, is that you can hire people from anywhere. And because of that, you should have a process that give a chance to everyone to apply. And you should think marketing, distribution, and building the brand out of your company like you will think any online marketing approach for your product or for your company. And that means that you will have much more candidate to process by job application if you do your job well. And that also means that you need standardization and automation to make that right. So everything starts by writing accurate and engaging job ads. There is something that I found really strange in startups is how much startups try to look like a big companies very early on, even if most of the people going in startups are trying, by the way, to escape big companies. So I'm not telling you to go in the caricature of very nerdy company that use Star Wars name or Lord of the Ring name as a job description. But if it's you, you should do it. But I'm kind of encourage you to show who you are and your culture inside your job description, and to show how much you are looking for aptitude more than diploma or criteria that are a bit from the old world. If you talk about hiring in remote, then it's easy to understand why most of the usual criteria of experience, diploma, and things like that don't really make sense. We have a company at the family that built a really impressive remote team with 9 people in 7 countries in the last 6 months. They have an incredible traction. It's going super well for them. It's a bit of a randomness that they became a remote company because they started in middle of COVID, so they didn't have the choice. And one of the things that was really funny is that one of their employees always refused to put his camera in every meeting. And so they were kind of intrigued, but he was super talented, doing his job well. And so one day they were doing like a drink, online drink with their team. And they say, okay, come on, man, you have to show us your face. I mean, what can be that wrong? And then he put his camera, and he was 13 years old. And he was so worried that we realized that he was 13 years old, that he lied since the beginning, but he's the best developer they have in the team. That shows how much a good process that is open mind to anyone is the power of remote. Remote is a real opportunity for diversity, empowerment, and equal opportunity, because you can make the process of hiring people super smooth and super equal and based on very objectivable things, because you don't need to hire for people that match in the office, that are not awkward or whatever. You are really just looking for people that do their job super well. And that's one of the biggest upside of remote work. That means that I encourage you to have the most structured hiring process and to show to the candidate the process from the beginning with a deadline, with steps, and with a very clear path of what will be each step since the beginning. You need to think your hiring process as a product, and you need to give a marvelous experience to candidates, especially if you're a bit in a scale mode. So if you are hiring just the first people in your company, you should do that through email with a clear step-by-step email. And if you are growing a bit, there is a ton of hiring management software that you can use. Stay aligned with the team. Try to engage everyone inside the team in the process. Again, one other problem about usual hiring process is that engaging the team is super unfocused, especially in the office. You need to check that everyone is here at the same moment, blah, blah. If you are 100% remote and if you are 100% online, it's kind of easy to do it, and you can do it very, very, very fast. And you don't have a problem about that because it's online, so people can adapt to the schedule. They can do it from anywhere, and you can have everyone inside your company engage in the hiring of new people. And that's one of the best way to get an amazing onboarding for the new employee. Remember, one of the biggest challenge remember that one of the biggest challenge of remote work is to get the same level of engagement you have that you are when you are in a small team in an office where everybody knows everyone. To replicate that, you need as early as possible in the hiring process a way to involve everyone and to show the details in the culture of your company, and that reflect on the willingness of candidates to come inside your company. The great thing about remote is that you can use this process to test the compatibility of candidate with remote condition. Remote work is kind of mandatory these days, but it's not really easy for everyone. And as much as you don't need to check the culture of people and the adaptability of people like before inside your office, you need to check if people have the right skill set and the right mindset to work remotely. And that's great because the process of hiring online is also a way to check if people are adapted. Of course, at every step of the process, test, and test. It should be a very interactive process. Iterate as much as possible. Don't try to do something perfect too fast, but try to always think through scale, and the scalability will be even better inside your team. Then start the real question of how do you should pay people, global offer versus local offer. I'm a big fan of global offer. I think you should pay people the same price wherever they are, but then that's your responsibility and that's the way of building. But you should be very, very clear about that, because if you pay people locally, you can end up with a team where the same people doing the same work are not paid the same because they don't live in the same place, where it doesn't really have any impact on the fact that you don't have an office and you are remote. Recruiting is the first step. Onboarding is everything. I already told you about that. You need to think the onboarding process as much as the hiring process. The onboarding is super, super important because the onboarding is about making people feel part of your team. And for me, onboarding is a kind of a last step and last try and last test inside your hiring process. That's why onboarding is as important as everything else. So, do you have any question, guys? I don't know where I see the question in inside. How will we create the randomness on remote? That's a good question, Alex. So there is a few tricks to do that, and I think one of my favorite one is to play video game. Playing video game online with a Zoom open and creating a bit of competition and fun together is the best way to replicate the chill of random moment inside the office. And of course, there is other way of doing that. There is chat roulette. There is a random 101, random lunch. And of course, it doesn't mean that remote, you never see people. You can organize an all-site team. I mean, COVID is a bit of a special condition, but when COVID will end, there will be opportunities to do that. Question, guys? Do you think that you can build $1 billion company remote? It's not if I think it, it's already have been done. There is already many $1 billion company that have been built 100% remote. And I think we are going to see more and more of them. It was a big debate. It's not a debate anymore because some people proved that the people that think that it was not possible were wrong. So about legal barriers, local legislation, you have three phases inside your startup. You have the beginning where you are a bit small. Don't worry too much about that. It's fine. Then you start to be at a size where you need to worry about that. And there is more and more companies that take care of this kind of logistic. Deal is a good example of that. There's many others. There will be a lot of companies that will try to solve the problem of scaling compliance of a worker online. Do you think that anyone is able to work from home? I don't think so. I think, of course, some people don't want to do that. Some people don't have the right condition to do that. I mean, it requires a real investment in your place and in yourself, and that can be a bit challenging. What about gamification of the onboarding process? Any tips or remark? So I'm not a big fan of gamification. I have the feeling that gamification is often very funny for a few weeks and then it annoys everyone. So I will avoid as much. I think what you need to do in the onboarding process is to make it as clear and efficient as possible and really have people connect deeper with others and find a way to do that. How could you differentiate yourself from the crowd in your virtual recruitment process? So it's like with any differentiation online, it goes through storytelling and your ability to tell a story that is very compliant. A good story, it's not a story that everyone likes. And I think that's the first thing. And I think look more and more at a polarized world. There is one read that I encourage you to have is Rules for Radicals from Saul Alinsky. You should read this book because it's one of the best way to engage community online and to differentiate yourself. But you differentiate yourself most of the time, not by the people that you are getting in, but by the people that you are not letting get in. And so exclusion and having a clear view of what you accept and what you don't accept is super, super important. With global salary, how do you remain competitive in some country, also with benefits? So that's a trade-off. The thing is that when I say global salary, I mean that you pay well, but it depends on your company, it depends on your startup, it depends on how in which market you are. But I think that most of VC-compatible startups that are raising VC money from mature market should not be cheap about how they pay people. That's the way they will attract the best people. When you say test, how do you prepare a good test? First, by not thinking that there is a good test. Test is a philosophy and it's a mindset and it's a way of doing things. So you should implement tests even if they are bad, and they will be better and better. It's just a mindset of always trying something new, always trying to see which hypothesis seems obvious and how you can interrogate and then you test it. This scientific mindset is one of the most powerful mindset you can apply to a company or a startup, because by definition, the value is in everything you don't know. Everything you know is already at zero value. So you need to push to always extend your perspective and always extend your understanding of your market and your reality and everything else. Alice, I don't think I'm hearing you.
You don't hear me?
No.
Yes?
Yeah.
You hear me well?
Very well.
It was very interesting, Oussama.
Thank you.
Even though I knew it already, because I know your thesis, I know what you think, but it's still super cool to hear it. So thank you very much. Did you enjoy it?
Of course, always.
And did you like this new setup? It looks like a TV show, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's amazing. I'm super impressed.
This is thanks to Studio Majorel. All right. Thank you, Oussama. Thank you very much. Now we will switch to my favorite part. And my favorite part is the chat roulette. Yes, my friend, because before, when we used to run this event in a real space, what I love to do was to asking the crowd to talk to each other. So you would join a family event in Paris, London, or Berlin. And when you would arrive, already after 5 minutes after the beginning, we would ask you to take 3 minutes to talk to your neighbor. Right now, you don't have any neighbor, but you have the chat roulette. And the chat roulette, basically, it's a cool experience. So my friends, you are in Hopin right now. For the ones who are on YouTube, join us on Hopin, because you will enjoy this very moment. It's not every day that you can connect with totally randomly with people who actually share the same passion as you, tech entrepreneurship. And right now we're talking about recruitment, and who knows, you might find a new employee. You might find someone who could help you recruit. You might even find a new co-founder or an investor. Let's play the game of serendipity. Basically, what you have to do if you are on Hopin right now, you click on networking and you will randomly be connected during 5 minutes with someone. Just enjoy this moment. Introduce yourself, be kind, and remember, there is always a treasure to find in someone. But you only have 5 minutes to find this treasure. That's your goal. So let's do it. You click on networking, you enjoy meeting at least 3 or 4 people, and then we'll be back with the Fireside Chat. An amazing program, but now it's time to enjoy and to discover other people, to connect with other people, and to click on the chat roulette button called networking. Enjoy, my friends. All right. Okay, my friends, we are back together. Did you enjoy this moment, this chat roulette moment? It was cool, right? It's always funny to meet with other people we don't know, and to connect with them. All right. So we're going to start a new moment. We're going to start the fireside chat between Robin and Job, and we're going to talk about talent sourcing in a remote world. Okay, we're starting with the very beginning, the first thing, which is sourcing. So let me introduce you to these two amazing speakers. I'm very happy to welcome them because actually we've been thinking of all of this event with Robin, the CEO and founder of HireSuite. So basically, Robin helps startups recruit software engineers by developing a cutting-edge AI tool. So thousands of startups have been using HireSuite to grow from 10 to 100 people. And the knowledge of Robin, I'm telling you, my friends, is pure gold. And with Robin, you have Job. And Job has an amazing, amazing experience to share with you as well. Robin has been working for 5 years at GitLab. He's been growing the team there. And you know GitLab, huh? They work fully remotely. He's been growing the team remotely from 5 to 450 people from all over the world. And because of this experience, this unique experience, he started remote.com, his new company that he's going to talk about, to help you, to make it easier, basically, for organization and people to work remotely. Robin, Job, if you are here, you are welcome to take the stage and to start this fireside chat. Yes, I see you guys.
I'm here.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for the notes and the intro. It was great.
You're
Thanks so much.
welcome. Cool. So the stage is yours. You have 45 minutes. Enjoy, and I'll be back later. I'm listening to you. Thank you for being here. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hey Job, we met before, so happy to have you here again today. I suggest we start by, so Alice's intro was great, I think, saying that our knowledge was gold, so it was good to hear. Maybe I can start with a quick intro presentation of my own background, then you can do the same, and then we can jump, and we already have a plan prepared, so we have a lot to say today. All right.
Let's do that.
Okay, so I'm Robin, CEO, co-founder at HireSuite. We created a company 4 years ago. As Alice said, we worked with hundreds, not thousands of companies, not yet, but hundreds, help them hire hundreds of employees. Mostly startups, so we have that very interesting expertise on startups, and especially on the sourcing side. So we mostly help people reach out to passive candidates. So we're very focused on the outreach, even though we're specialists of the whole funnel. And I also host a podcast called 8 Players on how to build team, hire, etc. So I'll share the link, and so I'll try to do a mix of both my experience and what I learned in this podcast today.
Thanks, Robin. I will introduce myself. So I'm Job. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Remote. That's remote.com. Yeah, as we were introduced, I founded Remote specifically after experiencing at GitLab, where we had today 1,300 people in 67 different countries. And the one thing we constantly struggled with was, how do you actually pay all those people? How do you employ them all over the world? And we never really found a good solution. So I figured I would build a solution myself, and that is exactly what we did with Remote. And so what we do is we solve payroll, compliance, benefits, and just the ability to hire anyone from anywhere all over the world for now hundreds of companies.
Cool. And so again, sourcing, there's a lot to say. So maybe we can start by defining what sourcing exactly is. And sourcing is very easy, actually. It's the first step in the talent acquisition pipeline, right? But there are, I would say, 5 main steps. The first one being sourcing, then interviewing, then extending the actual offer, then closing, and then the actual onboarding, which is also part of the talent acquisition pipeline. Would you agree with these 5 steps?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think nowadays, it can get quite complex if you're in a position where you're looking for a very specific hire that. And maybe to fill one position, the process is going to look very different than if you're going to look for a large amount of people. But like from a high level, I think it always looks basically like that. Yes.
Right. And so we really thought about this when we prepared the event, and we decided to focus on sourcing and interviewing. But obviously, we have a lot to say, and I would probably have more to say on the outreach. But you also have more to say on the onboarding, so we can focus on that later. So the very first step before you launch a new hire is to prepare, right? And remote work means you have to prepare differently. You can target people in the same city. You can target people in the same country, on the same time zone, on completely different time zones altogether. How do you prepare? What's your tips from remote, and how do you prepare when you launch a new hire in remote?
Yeah, it is very different indeed, right? Like, so previously you would have an office and you would hire someone that is close by and the near to the office or willing to relocate close to the office. So there were a lot of things you didn't have to think about, and those things included what time zone is the person. So I think for us, internally, and what we see with our customers as well, the starting point is very much with what is what is the freedom that I give myself in hiring across the world. So assuming you use us or anyone else to solve the actual part of paying people, what is the range of time zones that you want to hire someone in? Or is it actually required to come into the office? There's still that option to say, well, we want someone to come into the office once in a while. But especially if you have a fully remote team, I think that first consideration is, what is the range of time zones that I want to hire in? And my recommendation usually around this is, plus minus a number of hours, and that number of hours can be greater or smaller depending on how comfortable you are with working asynchronously, how much time you need to have in overlap, etc. And in certain functions, you actually want someone to be in a specific time zone. If you want to have 24/7 customer support, you might want to make sure that a person is in a particular time zone, in a particular range of time zones. If you don't know this, what I generally recommend organizations do is like plus minus 4 hours. Start there. That gives you probably a talent pool of like 1 billion people, or at least millions of people, which should suffice. And then as your team grows, you can start to expand that. So that is really consideration number one. Like where does this person actually have to be located? And then following that, you go through a very similar process in defining what should the role look like, what is expected of the person. Another thing about time zones that's interesting here, which is something we've noticed, is that some people, they don't work according to their time zone, in a sense that you have people living maybe in the middle of Europe, but they sleep the entire morning, or they do other things. They have other things that keep them busy, and they tend to work afternoons and nights. So essentially, they're living in a US time zone, which is one of those things that upfront you don't necessarily think about, because you sort of assume from the office culture that everybody works 9 to 5, but in reality, that could be very, very different. And setting expectations upfront always helps with these kind of cases. Beyond that, I think starting the job description, starting to think about like what does this role look, is very, very similar to previously. Do you have any specific thoughts, Robin, that I missed here?
Well, what we see, and I'm curious to see if that's also what happens with your customers and the people you work with, but what we see is usually the company will do small steps, right? Especially if they're transitioning into remote work because of the COVID. If it's not something that's native to their company, they'll usually start by hiring someone in the same city but coming to the office just once a week or once a month. And then they'll move to someone in the same country but different cities. And once they'll build the proper infrastructure to work with these people, then they realize they don't have people to come to the office at all. And they can even work with people in different countries, and they can even work with people on different time zones. And as you say, I think there are several reason why people move to remote work. Either they started this way, it's part of the company DNA, and well, then no question, because that's how you work, probably how you started yourself after your experience at GitLab, and then you just have to to build a new way of working. Or you can transition to that because you've been forced to with COVID, or because you think there are bigger opportunities, or because you realize that you want, again, time zone coverage, as you mentioned, having customer success teams that can provide 24 hours coverage. And so depending on the team, they will start doing differently, and depending on how mature they are with remote work, what we usually see, and maybe some people listening to us today are doing this transition right now, you don't have to start by hiring someone in a different country, just right out the door, right? You can start by different cities, then different countries, and then different time zones. So that's also what we're seeing, like, moving to that. Do you work a lot? I guess you do, but do you work a lot with companies doing that drastic change because of COVID and deciding to stick with it?
To a degree, I think the strongest motivation of organizations is to just hire great talent, right? They recognize that there's not a hard need anymore to be in the office. Like maybe it was COVID that forced them to realize this, but like the reason that they work with us is not because they have to. It's because specifically they found someone great that just happens to live in another country. And we certainly have a few customers that started out because of COVID, and some companies that didn't exist before COVID also. But yeah, I think mostly it is strongly driven by just the need to hire great people, which has been really, really awesome. Like, actually, if you're starting to work remotely, my advice would be to just hire the best person you can find, and like not care too much about where they live, as long as you have those few hours of overlap that you can work together synchronously. But other than that, I would not care too much. Like the getting together is really nice, and you should do it once in a while. The money that you save with not having to buy everybody an office, you can use to organize those trips. So yeah.
And so the first part is obviously understanding the role, understanding the location, setting up clear guidelines, and then setting up expectation for the person as well. So you mentioned telling about the work hours or the location, etc., etc. And then, so before we even move to publishing the job posting and getting candidates, you have to write the actual job description. So we've been through these before again and again and again. What's your advice on this, on writing the actual job description?
Yeah, I would say spend time on it, ask feedback, and make sure that people from different backgrounds within your organization look at it. So if everybody has a similar background and looks at it, you're probably biasing to hiring the same kind of person as you are and as the people that reviewed it. So that's an easy start. Beyond that, I'm a big fan. Like the more clear you can be about the role, about what you expect them to do, what their work is going to be like, the better it is. Like I think it will only help you the clearer you are, and the more honest and transparent you are about how the role is going to be. And about the format itself, you see many different things. I have been playing with like just writing like sort of a long post, like a short blog post, so to say, but then as a job description rather than something with lists of requirements and expectations and whatnot. I'm not sure if it works better. That's certainly to think about, but being specific and being clear, that helps. I think what you should not do is include things that are super obvious. Like if you write that someone should be an excellent communicator, like literally everybody's looking for that. There's no one that's going around and thinking to themselves, we're going to find a job where I don't have to be an excellent communicator because I'm not one. So that's an easy one. So set expectation and be realistic and respect the applicants as well. Don't tell them, you need to be able to communicate, or, that's obvious.
One of the tips that I like is to find your unfair competitive advantage, the thing that you can say that any other company couldn't say. And so the way it works is you you look at your 5 closest competitors, and you think of the things they could say in the job posting, and you don't want to say that. You want to be different. And again, a good advice that we had. So we had a great podcast on this with a guy named James Ellis. He's focused on employer branding. Good episode. And what he says is the same as what Usama said before. You have to tell a story. You have to hammer that story again and again and again once you find your very competitive advantage. So, and today, being a remote team cannot be a competitive advantage, right? It might have been the case 2 years ago, but today it's not the case anymore. So you have to find your competitive advantage and then hammer that again and again and again and again, and get people home by making it very clear what's your competitive advantage, what's your strength. And also, as Usama said, a good story is not a story that everyone likes, right? You also have to, in a way, write your job description and make it on purpose that some people won't apply. And that's a good advice. And that's a good advice we had. Probably similar to your job post, right? Like it's a long blog post, so some people won't like it, won't read it. But if they don't, well, then they're probably not a good fit, because you like blog posts, right? Write some of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I think if you have like strong company values, this is a really good occasion to either link to them or like specifically talk about those. And the better your company values are, the more it will resonate or not resonate with particular people. And I find the best candidates that I see are people that align themselves with those values. They say, "Whoa, I really thought it was great that these are your values," or I can really find myself in some of these, especially because of my previous experiences, good or bad. And I think that helps a lot. It also helps in subsequent steps if you're very clear about what those values are.
Right, and again, be clear front, be clear on the work hours, be clear on the compensation if you can, be clear on anything, because that will save a lot of time later in the sourcing. Okay, so step number 2 is actually getting candidates. So you're prepared, you have a very clear idea of who you're looking for, where they should be based. You actually wrote your first job description, you have the very clear message, so you know what you're looking for, and you have an idea of the people you don't want to apply and the people that you'll just single out with your very specific story. And now you have to get candidates. So usually there are 3 main sources for candidates, especially for startups. There's outreach, you reach out to people, passive candidates, and you try to poach people. Then there's inbound, you post a job somewhere and you wait for people to apply. There is a mix of both, which is referral. So you ask for your team for referrals. They might be happy in their jobs, or they might have come through inbound anyway, but it's again a bit different. There's a first one, but it's not very used in startups. It's internal mobility. You take someone and you just have them change jobs. So maybe I'll talk a bit about outreach, because I think I have a few tips here. But what do you see in inbound? What works best to have remote applicants from over the world? Because again, the rules are different when you want to source anywhere in the world.
So I mean, it's a high level question, but I think our experience has been very varied. To be transparent in what we see, we essentially see 2 different things. One, we see positions where the moment we post something online and we have a strong brand, we have a massive amount of applicants. And then we have the luxury problem of filtering through hundreds or sometimes even thousands of people and trying to find one person that we want to hire of that, which is a really great problem to have. But we have also experienced the opposite, where we are hiring a very specific role or role where we know there's only a few people, or people that the kind of role that we're hiring for is not necessarily people that are interested in the world that we are in, or are not necessarily interested in startups and then have not heard about us. And so our experience has been very, very varied in this, and we had to choose many different approaches. I mean, I think you have a lot more experience than I have on this, Robin. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, we actually help people post on the classic job boards, right? Like AngelList, Stack Overflow doesn't seem to be working very well, but we had some people have some success there. And I guess you can also use remote specific job boards like Remotive, Remote OK. People obviously looking for remote jobs there. It's probably more tech positions. So when you want to hire a remote engineer, they're more likely to go on Remote OK or Remotive. And what else? And then I guess you can use the specific country job boards, main job boards in each country, where you won't be competing with other remote companies, and that could be a smart thing to do as well. But again, that comes down to being sure of the location of the person you want to hire. And you mentioned that you hired people in Africa, around the world. How do you do that? Do you use country-specific job boards each time, or do you use like remote-specific job boards?
We never use country-specific job boards.
Okay.
So for us, the majority of applicants comes from the fact that we have a strong brand and people follow us on Twitter, tweet about it or post on LinkedIn, for example. That's where the majority comes from. For specific roles, because we don't really care where people live, we just hire people anywhere, right? That's literally our business to make that possible. So we practice that internally as well. So what we do is we go for specific boards or newsletters, for example. So let's say we hire a lot of Elixir engineers, which is a very specific language. Like there's not that many Elixir engineers in the world, and so what we do is we promote in the Elixir weekly newsletter. That's where we promote the job. We maybe sponsor it, or we make sure that we have blog posts there that are featured. Those are very good tricks for us to work. Other than that, remote job boards and such, they can help really, really well. I think having a strong brand is probably the easiest way of finding people. And then ultimately just networking. So if you know people that are, let's say I'm hiring someone for a specific finance position. If you know people that have a strong network in there, ask them to help you, either finding those newsletters, finding those job boards, or just simply sometimes sharing something on LinkedIn. If you especially if you're a remote company, don't underestimate the power of just saying, look, we're a fully remote company. You can work from wherever you want. We'll buy you a MacBook and we'll pay you well. There's still way less companies that offer those kind of things than you think there are. Like, forced working from home is not the same as saying, well, I'm a company that is fully remote and we actually embrace this. You can actually work from everywhere. So don't underestimate how strong of a benefit that actually is to people. And that should get you pretty far.
Right. And then there's outreach. So your example with the Elixir engineer is a good one, because this is closing in on actually doing some outreach. Like, you're targeting the people, you go to where they live, where they hang out, and then you just be there. And you can also reach out to them on LinkedIn. You can reach out to them on our personal emails, enroll them in email sequences, because now you can be way more specific. You have this role, you can source anywhere in the world or in the time zone that you define, and you can find those people. Most of them are either on LinkedIn, on GitHub, on Stack Overflow. So that's a lot of talent to tap in. And you can just enroll them and do that proactively. And especially for roles, and again, so that's what we're doing. So, and that's part of our product. But especially for roles, very qualified roles where you have to find top-notch talents. Then these people won't apply to your company. Even if you have a very strong brand, even Google, right? They do outreach on software engineers because great software engineers are usually happy where they are, because their managers don't want them to leave. And so here we also recommend doing a lot of outreach, finding those people on LinkedIn. And if you did your job in a preparation step, then you know very well who you're targeting. You have a very clear job description, very clear message, very clear competitive advantage, and you can reach out to them very easily using what we call personalization at scale. That is defining a so precise persona of the person you're looking for. You can use a generic message, and it will feel targeted, because again, you're targeting Elixir engineers who are interested in the space and who are based in Europe to offer them a remote job. So your response rate will be super high. So that's where we usually focus as well. And then referral, I don't know if you have any tips on that. You mentioned that quickly.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the people that we hire, we find through referrals. I don't have any particular magic that works. Again, I think it's good to be shameless to your network and the network of your colleagues, and be like, look, you know, we always have an internal referral program. So if you refer someone that we actually hire and that stays on for a while, you know, the person referring them gets a bonus, and that bonus has to be not insignificant, because otherwise, like, you know, the motivation is low. You want someone to really bring someone in, and that, you know, that can help a lot. Yeah, and just being shameless about these kind of things, and like actually asking, because, you know, you are ultimately doing something nice, which is, you know, you're getting someone a new, better job. Right? They won't take it if it's not a better job. So being shameless about it, and just asking your network to either reach out, to recommend particular people, and going that route. Usually when you get someone referred, they already have a job, so you will have to poach them away and do a really good job, which is a great practice also about the other things that we spoke about. Like, what are your unfair advantages as a company for hiring this specific person? You know, do you have clearly defined values, and is it what you're offering actually competitive with, you know, the place where that person is right now? And if it's not, like, how do you expect to continue to hire people like that? So it can be a good exercise. I don't think there's particular magic involved. What do you think, Robin?
We heard a few recipes. I don't know how they work, but that's interesting. Like the first one being every person that joins the company on their first day, you ask them 5 person they would like to join the company again. They worked with in the past and they would like them to join the company. So you embed that in the onboarding process. Could be an idea. Another idea is at the end of the first month to sit with any new employee and sift through their LinkedIn connections, LinkedIn network, and see for people yourself and ask for intros. Like, that person is very interesting. Reach out to them and talk about the company. This is a bit pushy, so I don't know if I would do it myself, but I guess some people will like it. Cool. And then, so that's the main focus on preparation. Then sourcing, we'll just probably say a few words on the interview and the end of the pipeline, which is extending the offer, closing, onboarding, and then probably move. So there were some questions here, so probably answer a few questions then. What's your main advice on the end of the pipeline? Extending the offer, closing, onboarding the person. Did anything happen to you on these specific things that made you change your process?
You know, I have one anecdote, which, you know, Robin, which might be interesting to tell here, which is the one person we struggled. So as remote is, you know, we solve for like local requirements. So if we want to make an offer, we know how to make it compliant locally, and we found that it is very, very hard, but we made it a business, and it's doable. The one time we struggled with one of these processes was when we tried to hire someone in a country where internet access is not a universally stable thing. So this person has internet access, and they spoke with us multiple times, but also one time it rained and they were not able to speak with us. And this is the one time when we are like, how do we actually solve for this? Because we sort of assumed that we could just hire anyone from anywhere, and like the hard part is what we were solving, right? But it turns out there's other hard parts, and one of them being internet access. So the way we solved it in this case is we actually bought them 2 internet lines, so that they are solved in that regard, and we could extend the offer. But we had to literally adjust our offer in this case to be able to get to that point. But to go back a little bit, I think the interview process, when you are fully remote, I often get a question like, how do you interview people? And I don't think it's very different. I always wonder what people do when they're together in the office. It's so incredibly valuable about seeing how tall someone is, or, you know, what kind of pants they are wearing, about whether they are the right person for the job. So if you ask yourself that question, like, how do I? It's the same thing, and actually it's much more structured, because people can be interviewed on their own time. You know, you can make sure you have several people interviewing them. I think there's many little tips that I could advise, and all of them are about optimizing the experience for the employee. So the first one is that if you have multiple interview rounds, which you should have, right? You should not have that you just speak with one person and that's it. If you have multiple interview rounds, make sure that they're very close together so that the process is not very long. It's bad for everybody involved. As an employer, you're likely to lose the candidate to someone else, right? Because and it's also just not nice that process takes a very long time. So you want to compress that, and it really has to happen within a week or so. And then in that week should be multiple events. There should not be weeks and weeks between different interviews. And beyond that, making sure that the people interviewing them is a diverse set of people. You don't create an inclusive organization by interviewing and everyone that interviews you looks the same. If you are different than those people, then you won't feel like, oh, this isn't an organization where I will fit in. And if there's no other choice in that sense, then yeah, you have to address that somehow. Yeah. Do you have further thoughts on the interview process, Robin?
Interview. I would say that no, most companies, especially startups, are used to running remote interview processes. It didn't change a lot for me. I don't think it changed a lot for our companies. And then, as you said, people realize, well, we've been running this in person for years, but why, right? Because when you meet in person, well, you talk about the same thing, and there's only there are only biases that could get into the game, right? As you said, the color of the pants or anything. So you don't want to be victim to these biases. And again, I think remote interview processes are better in lots of ways. The shorter, the better as well. I agree with that. Maybe to give you the general structure that we give to our customers. Usually what we do, so they'll start by having that conversation with the person, usually over email or something like that, then a phone screen, then move them as fast as possible to a technical interview, a tech assessment, or at least an assessment. So it's a tech interview for engineers, but it's an actual assessment for anyone else. And that assessment, what we recommend is do that in person and spend time with the person, especially engineers. When you're hiring on more volume jobs, then you'll probably want to send a test that they can do. But don't do that after the phone screen, because that's where you can sell the company and you can sell the role. So phone screen, then assessment, and then you can have 2 more rounds, one with the founders to test on the values, for instance, or assess something else, and then one with the teams. And that's usually what we do. And again, it's very easy to compress these 4 steps in 1 week, and that's definitely what we recommend. Okay, cool. So I think we can jump to the questions before we're at the end of our chat. Thanks a lot, Job. It was interesting, and what I like is that so what we do is we'll help companies hire, and a lot of them are hiring remotely, but what you do is you actually build your own team remotely. So that makes it even more interesting. So thanks for the learnings. So one of the questions we had was, how can you ensure that the process and the experience are the same in all countries? That's probably one for you.
Yeah, I don't think this is actually that hard. As long as you separate 2 parts, there's the bureaucratic bits that cannot be the same across countries. It's like there's requirements in each country in the world that you have to do particular things. This boring stuff. It's like filling forms and whatnot. Everything else, like the true part of onboarding, it should be documented. Once you document something, it's easier to refer to it and say, this is how we do these things. And then you can iterate on it and improve it. And then there is nothing really different across countries. And all onboarding should include, meeting many people in the organization. It should include, starting to learn the context that they will be working in, preferably having, like, we have this as well, where you have an onboarding buddy, so someone that can easily reach out to and ask them general questions about the company, preferably like a random person from within the country, not someone that they are going to work with every single day, because then it's good to form another contact. And it doesn't really matter in which country in the world you are. All those things will work independently of where you are. It's just a little bit of bureaucratic first steps that might be different across countries. But then again, you take care of them, and then you move on. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Other than that, I don't think it's an issue.
There is something you mentioned though, which is benefits, right? You can offer the same benefit, but they will be felt differently around the world.
Yeah, it's a good point, Robin. So every country has different statutory benefits, right? Benefits you must offer as an employer, and so they will be different. I know for a fact that they are different in each country in the world, and in particular, if you think about United States, if you don't offer healthcare benefits in the United States, you're probably a bad employer. Inversely, if you offer them in Europe, you're one of very few, if any, that offer that, because most of the people in Europe, they have private healthcare already, or they have a public healthcare, or just don't want it subsidized through their employer. And so, this is, of course, a difference. And just as there's compensation differences, which I'm happy to get into, but I'll also get into in my workshop later today. That's something that I wouldn't worry too much about. It's best to just acknowledge the fact that countries are different and that the enrollment in those kind of things are different. Of course, my company, we solve for this kind of thing. So we give you like a global plan for these for healthcare, for example. But yeah, ultimately, best to just acknowledge the fact they are different. So the process around it are slightly different. That's just the way it is. In the end, we all want the same thing. We want to make sure that if we get hurt, we don't go bankrupt. So, and hopefully this helps with that.
Right. And so it's important to say as well that you do give a workshop later, right? What is the title of the workshop?
I forgot what the title is of the
Okay.
workshop.
But if you have
figuring out like global compliance, hiring people across the world, the kind of stuff that we do and that I know a lot about. So anyway, making jokes for 10 minutes. That's also
it's good that people know that you'll be available for the workshop as well, because there are usually less people, so you'll have more time to reply. And I do have a workshop as well focused on sourcing and building an outreach pipeline. I don't remember the name exactly, but if people want to join the workshop, I'd be happy to reply to that question as well. So we had one other question popping here, and then it disappeared. Right, links to workshops. Good. Is there one key point to focus on during the virtual onboarding phase? What would it be? So we're talking about onboarding, right? So after the person received and accepted the offer, and again, I would more say that's your area here. So what would you say, Jaap?
Yeah, getting to know each other. So the one thing that you lose by being virtual, by being remote, is walking into the office and seeing each other around the office. And when you first lose this, you don't miss it because you're like, this is great. I can hang out in my pajama all day. But if there's no replacement for it, you'll start to feel isolated or you start to feel alone. And that's actually not good. You want to actually be social with your colleagues because that forms connections, and those connections are valuable. For one, you to just enjoy working with these people and to build a rapport with them. And so you have to replace this somehow. And so when you're onboarding, you have to assume that person knows nobody in the organization. And so you have to force them in a position where they start to form connections with people. And the only way to do this is to literally put two people together, tell them, have a conversation for 30 minutes, a coffee call, whatever you call it, or have lunch together virtually. And this is an absolute must. I think there's literally nothing more important doing this during onboarding. I would, if you want to do it well, you make sure that all new hires do at least 10 of these coffee calls, so 10 times, 30 minutes, spread over a week or two, with random people around the organization, preferably actually random. So don't let them self-select, like actually randomly match them up with the people in the organization, so that also people that were previously in the organization don't, self-select them, like opt out, which would be bad as well, because then they only connect with people that have been there for longer. And also so that you don't get people to focus only on people that look like them or in similar departments. You purposely want to make sure that people connect with other people around the organization. So I think that's the number one thing to focus on during onboarding. Everything else is what you would expect, which is just, making sure someone can actually do their job.
Right, and I do have another question for you, specific to HireSuite. So before we had a Wii, and we played a lot of Mario Smash Bros. On the Wii together. And now we're all working remotely. We moved to doing small games. Like we played Among Us. We played the Scribble. Do you have any recommendation that people can use to play together during breaks?
Yeah, we play the same games. We have a Minecraft server. We play Dungeons and Dragons together. Whatever people like. I think Pictionary is extremely popular within our team, so that's one I recommend. Just what people feel like. It's just, I think games are a really, really, really good medium to get people together and to do these kind of things.
Cool. Feel free if you have other games ideas to share in the chat. We're looking for new games. And next question, how can you manage the asynchronous communication with candidates? I would say emails, or I would say emails during the interview process, but you have a smarter...
Yeah, that's my answer as well. It's like, yeah, emails are by nature asynchronous. They're great. They don't bother you when you're sleeping, and so yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about this. If you want to test someone how good they are at asynchronous communication, just read their cover letter. Like if someone doesn't write well, that's a pretty good giveaway. But other than that, yeah, emails. Do the actual interview, do it in person. It helps you, see the person, talk to them, which is probably an important part of their job. If it's not, then maybe you can skip it. But yeah.
I actually heard about a new product from a company called Resource.io. They do a new product called Guide, and it's an interviewing guide for candidates, so they'll have everything in one place. You might want to check it out if emails are not good enough for you.
That's cool.
Would you use video games as part of the interview process? I would never do that personally. I would never do that. I feel like the more unbiased your interview process, the better. And I don't see how you could assess someone based on their performance during a video game. But again, maybe I haven't discovered the right video games. I would rather use a very specific example of their daily work, which is apparently the better predictor of an employee's future success, is a piece of the work they'll actually do. So instead of playing video games, I would rather have them work on something they'll do on the job. Video games, there's just so much biases there. I can't imagine that could work. How about you?
I think it's mostly practically very hard to pull off something like that. So
yeah,
that's the main reason why I do it. I think it's good to do an activity together with someone to get to know them, but for an interview process, probably not appropriate. But I'd love to see someone create an interview game. I would love to try it.
And I'm not big fans either of companies doing lunches or dinners or drinks to assess someone and to assess the fit with the team, because again, it's very biased. So I wouldn't play Mario Kart to assess someone to join the team.
Yeah, no, that's terrible. I think that's a terrible idea. I would not recommend anyone to ever do that. Yeah, that's heavily biasing the experience. Yeah. Right. You're gonna hire a lot of great drinkers. So do you want that? No one would hire me. And
then I think we're good, Alice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It was super interesting. Thank you very much to both of you, Robin and Job. Did you enjoy this moment?
Yeah, we did.
Thank you.
We felt like we were with you two, having the conversation.
That's great.
That's the point.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you will stay and you will test the chat roulette. There's another one coming afterwards.
Sure. And we're also having workshops, right? So people will join our workshop and ask more questions.
Exactly. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Elise. Thanks,
Elise.
All right. I hope you enjoyed as much as we did with my team. I've seen a lot of questions and interaction in the chat, and that's super cool. So, my friends, now we have been talking with Job and Robin about sourcing. I would like to talk with Gilles, the CEO of Livestorm, about how to create an amazing culture in a hyper-growth startup. So just to introduce you, who is Gilles? So Gilles Berthaud has been creating Livestorm. It's an all-in-one platform for video communication. He's a first-time entrepreneur. Actually, he jumped right after his school into entrepreneurship. He co-founded Livestorm in 2016. In November 2020, so really recently, he raised 30 million in a Series B funding to strengthen Livestorm presence in the US and introduce new video use cases. So today, more than 3,500 companies trust Livestorm to organize their meeting, their webinars, and their online events. I'm super excited to welcome Gilles today, and we will have 30 minutes. Hello, Gilles. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good.
Cool. I'm super happy to have you here. So are we in your office or are we at your home?
No, I wish that was my home, but no, it's my office. I did a slight digression here, transgression, and come to the office because internet is better, and it's actually nicer in terms of environment.
Yeah, it's cool. Is that a fridge behind?
Yeah, that's actually one of the first fridge that we bought on the first offices. It has pretty much all the stickers from every tech French startups out there, even some US ones. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Gilles, let's start with the beginning. Can you give me like one sentence to explain the way you do it, Livestorm?
Sure. So Livestorm is a video communication platform. It enables you to run meetings and webinars right from your browser, whether that's a mobile browser or a desktop browser, from 1 to 1,000 attendees. And we run end-to-end logistics. So we don't just care about the video itself, but we care about landing pages, retargeting, promotion, everything else around. Basically, we want to do the heavy lifting so we can really focus on whatever content you need to create for your organizations.
Back in 2016, when you started, you didn't know that overnight the world would switch to remote work, right? So where did the idea come from? Did the idea come from at the very beginning? What made you so passionate about this?
Well, when we first started, so it's a funny story. I was just an intern at the time. I was working at Mention, that you may know, here in Paris, and actually I was doing a bunch of webinars for them, and the customers that we had the same struggles that the prospect that we have today. So essentially, I was teaching them on how to download something on the computer just to attend the event. I was coding the landing pages, coding the emails, because the defaults from the software were not getting it. And also from a data standpoint, I didn't get much out of it. So not only I was spending a lot of time organizing the event, teaching people on how to use a product, but also I was not getting much ROI out of it. So, we were fresh out of college. We we were still in college. I was required to build this final exam project, business plan, whatever. It was really like a dummy startup that we need to build. And so this is how we got the idea, and we built this, slight proof of concept, browser-based landing page builders, small integration, really small proof of concept. And we presented it to the jury. And not only we presented it, but we streamed our own presentation. And then we ended up actually streaming all the other teams' presentations. We stayed a whole day streaming, people coming on the chat. We had 100 people coming in, even our bosses, from the internships came. So for the first time, we had this feeling that, we actually built something like people enjoy to use. So that's pretty cool. Maybe there's something there, and when we graduated, we decided it was not so much of a different lifestyle going from, intern to unemployed. So, let's just roll with it and see what happens.
And by the way, I think you come from a school that is called Ethics, that I really love, because they mix different kinds of backgrounds and people, designers with tech people. It's a very different approach to education, right? Right.
Yes, it's a really project-based approach, and it basically produces jack of all trades. So I have a CTO who done design classes and marketing classes. My other associate is, CPO, so in charge of product. He's been doing some tech classes and code, and myself as well. I mean, the first website of Livestorm, I coded it, from scratch. So it was really nice to not have that struggle of finding a co-founder that is technical, because we're all technical, we're all jack of all trades. And that was actually one of the first brick of the culture that we put in place when I, take a look back, I think.
Exactly. And we can feel it, actually. Maybe you could describe a little bit before we jump into the growth and how you've been hiring people, what kind of people you're looking for. Maybe we could start by defining what is your culture. And yeah, let's start with this question.
All right. Actually, to be really transparent, I mean, don't worry too much. We've been like really bad at it, really bad at defining it. It has been this kind of underlying thing, unconscious thing that we knew we had to respect, but we didn't like put it on the wall. We didn't really put words on it. We were trusting our guts. But at some point when you start, being 10, 20, you actually need to put that on paper at some point, because you need people to you need to delegate hiring and to make sure they hire the same type of profiles that you look for. Then, you have to put some words on it. So we take a look. It took us like maybe 1 or 2 years. No, actually 1 year and a half, something, to, really make that concise and put it on paper. So essentially the first thing that we look for is, so there is this jack of all trade thing, we call that being resourceful, and being sure that you're resourceful, you're autonomous, and you'll be able to dig into problems and not be, limited by the scope of your job, and try to, expand beyond that. The second thing is being curious. We feel that conversations and ideas do not come necessarily from the same people over and over again. The best product ideas that we had didn't come from product. They come from sales. They come from care. They come from even ops people. So that's one thing that we look for. People interested in the business as a whole. That's this jack of all trade mindset. That's one of the other thing. I mean, the idea that I like to, the example that I like to bring usually is the person that is actually leading the US team right now on the care team she actually was taking care of children here in Paris before when we hired her. She was American, living in Paris, taking care of children. And now we hired her because she had this account manager background before in the US, but she wasn't doing that in Paris. And now she's probably the most technical person on the care team right now. And that's just an impressive learning curve. And that's one of the things we look for. And I think the last bit that is really, really important for us is humility. We try to find people that are simple, that do things really low profiles, huge performers, but really low profile. And we actually disqualified a lot of great candidates on paper from a skill set standpoint, but was not there yet in terms of ego. And we feel that when you can put some ego on the side, conversations are suddenly way more open, transparent, and easier, actually.
I get it. So how it's been this year for you? Because suddenly many, many, many users started using Livestorm.
Yeah. So, we were fresh out of Series A. So we had a Series A like back in June. It was a 4.6 million euros, and we were like 30 starting 2020. And then we had the whole, business plan planned out. We had like 1,000-ish customers, and we were on our way to make what are 2x the growth that we had that we wanted to have this year. And when we enter March, which is usually a good month, starts things to accelerate. Lockdown begins, things start to accelerate, and we don't really, I think we think it's kind of normal, right? Because March is always like a good month, but then you start refreshing your dashboard, and then every time you refresh, you see the numbers go up. You're like, no, this is not normal at all. There is something going on here. And to give you an idea, between beginning of March and end of May, we tripled the ARR, which is pretty good growth from a Series A company. And we fear that after the lockdown, so back in May, we will lose those people. That momentum will cease because lockdown is over. People will not need Livestorm anymore. And turns out it was quite the opposite, actually. And now September, we're back at it again. And now we are pretty much on a track of making an 8x growth in one single year, which is not something you see every day, and that's pretty insane to handle.
Yeah. And in terms of use case, tell me, because you're not just a tool for event like the one we are doing today. You are a tool also for internal communication. So you've seen the inside of and the adaptation of the startup internally.
Absolutely. So basically, if you take, the web conferencing market is a really large market. It's a lot of noise, a lot of different products. There is one popping up every single week. And I think Happen, typically the one we're using now, it's really on the end of the spectrum in terms of complexity. You have to large scale events, punctual events that happens once, twice, a year or something. For us, we're more on the middle of the spectrum. We take care of your regular video communications that you do on a daily or weekly basis. So from meetings to webinars to that kind of complexity that you require. And actually it doesn't matter if it is internal or external. We have people doing like internal trainings, internal onboardings, town hall meetings using Livestorm. And we also have on the other end people doing product demos, one-to-one product demos, but also one-to-many product demos. So it's quite different. But I think the common thing is those use cases that you have every day within your organization is the stuff that we address. And we address it really well as a differentiator from Zoom, for example, because we have this whole logistic around the streaming. We feel that video is a commodity, is not something we should focus anymore. We should focus about the packaging of the video, just like HubSpot did for landing pages or emails, whatever. We feel that the packaging is what's going to make video different now.
And have you seen, I'm just curious, have you seen interesting ways of doing things for companies adapting to the remote world?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of cool things, actually. I think COVID actually has accelerated a lot of different new use cases. I think, on a pre-COVID world, the webinar was mostly, if you take webinar as a use case, it was mostly attached semantically to the traditional, marketing webinars. Let's, talk about whatever content, whatever industry, etc. But when COVID happens, everyone was kind of forced to start using video for whatever they had to do. So continuing the business. And then from there, people realized that, there is this huge gap between B2C and B2B. Hosting a live on a B2C space, it's so easy. You grab your phone, you go Instagram live, boom, out of a sudden you have 100 people, engaging with you. On a B2B world, it's so hard. And for some reason, there is this huge gap, and we want to actually close that gap. That's our job, our mission as Livestorm. And people started, get creative about the content. So we've seen banks, clearly big, huge banks that don't care about remote, don't used to care about remote, starting doing internal podcasting, board meetings using Livestorm, showcase some R&D projects and stuff. So that's just not something you used to see a year ago. And I think one of the coolest use cases that we've seen is actually institutions. So the NHS in the UK, European commissions, also the French governments starting using Livestorm to coordinate themselves, coordinate actions during COVID. That was so insane to see. It's far from the marketing use case. And they're still using Livestorm because, it has they can create some kind of coordination and have the control of the communication and look professional. And it's so easy for them because it's in a browser. So that was really cool to see. That was a huge, huge moment for us.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about your growth, the growth of your team. How have you been managing that growth? How have you been hiring the people? And how do you work? I mean, what's the kind of organizations that you like to implement?
So when we actually started hiring more when after the lockdown. So we were like 30 something, beginning of this year. Then we had to hire more people on the care team because we had this huge load of inbound for customer service because obviously there was this wave going on. So we had to hire more. But apart from that, it was pretty much the same thing. And then when we realized momentum was still going on, and before hitting the gas on hiring, we knew that we didn't have the managers in place. So I think the first step was to put the right foundation and say, okay, we are missing that person in terms of middle management, because otherwise I'm going to be managing 20 people, which is definitely not something you should do. So we really staffed the entire middle management brick. And once we had that, then we started hitting the gas. And the first step to hit the gas was actually to hire a talent acquisition manager, because obviously if I had to do it, it will be 25% of my time, and I will not do as good as someone who is professional and actually does this job, right? So that was a huge game changer when our talent acquisition manager actually came at Livestorm and put all those great processes in place, really like rationalize everything. And now we actually have like 10 new hires every single month. I think it's just because of that. And then once you have that, it's all about preserving culture and structuring correctly, making sure that no one gets more than 5 people to manage, and that all the contracts and benefits and whatever admin thing going on is really well structured, really well clear for everyone. And also, the salaries grids, all the admin thing needs to be really structured. Hence why we just hired a head of people right after the talent acquisition manager. So I think all in all, the foundation and everything is have the right managers and right process builder in place before you hit the gas. Otherwise it goes to shit.
And are you working all remotely?
Yes. So pre 2020, we already had 50-ish% of the company working remote, and now it's closer to 75-80%. Obviously, when we are going to reopen the office, if we do reopen the office, we'll have probably 10-ish people within HQ. Otherwise, everyone else is remote.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about how do you keep everybody on the same page in terms of culture when you grow so rapidly. You said 10 people every month.
Well, I think the first thing is when there is a new, I think for the people that have been there for a while, that are actually hiring on their team. So for example, for us, it's head of growth, my co-founders. I don't need to be part of that. They have absorbed the culture. So they actually unconsciously know what we should be looking for. And I trust them like 100%. But if this is a new team, if this is a new manager or someone that just became manager, then I stay really actively part of the hiring process at some point to make sure that I still have an input on, this is a good fit or this is not a good fit. So I think that's the first thing that we've done. Also, really put on paper, document. Document is really the basis of everything. Document what you're looking for, and build the questionnaire, build the evaluation framework. And once you have that, the rest just follows up. But that's pretty much the foundation of everything. And during the onboarding phase, we basically have the same structure as we had before. So we make sure, and I think Job just actually mentioned that before, actually, is meeting as much people as possible, make it as dense as possible to make sure people have all the connections they need from a personal standpoint. They can reach out and get to know the team as if they had to know the whole team, but also because they need to understand the business as a whole, keep that mindset, jack of all trades mindset that we look for. So I think, Job interventions about that was exactly what I would recommend.
Do you still, like in the recruitment process, is there a moment when you meet the applicants before the final decision?
Yes, usually I always part of that, unless this is something run by one of my co-founders or run by someone who's been there since, like at least 2 years. But otherwise, I'm always there. I usually on the final steps, and yeah, that does it usually. It's enough.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to, I love to go back to the values. If you had to give me the main values, I know it's a hard exercise, and you said at the beginning, it's not obvious all the time, but you made the exercise. So what are the main values for you? Not bullshit values, like the real core values.
That's a good one. I'm really hesitating between two, but I was hesitating between being resourceful, not being resourceful, being curious about the business, about the other teams, and beyond, go beyond the scope of the job. But then I will just say, well, I'm removing ego, I'm removing humility from the equation. So I would rather go with humility. I would rather have someone I can coach, I can teach other part of the companies and bring them there, and that person has no ego and is coachable, rather than someone who is a diva and doesn't want to be coached in that way. So I think humility is something that I would preserve. And everyone on the team has this really simple way of being, and that's really refreshing, especially on the tech world, to be honest.
And you personally as a CEO, do you often use videos to talk to everybody? I mean, pre-recorded videos or things like that? I'm just curious.
That's a good point. We actually started thinking about it. I'm not really comfortable. I'm comfortable on the live video. Oddly enough, not so much comfortable on asynchronous video. When I'm staring to myself and talking, it feels like really weird. But more and more we are using actually asynchronous video, but not on my team, not myself. Actually, my co-founders are doing that for teaching the team about products, about certain part of the business. But I feel I should do it more. But yeah, but video, I do it every single week. I have these team meetings where I'll jump on stage and talk about the business. So live video is something I'm really comfortable with. But I think asynchronous video as a good point. Typically, I think I heard, I don't know who's the CEO anymore, but anyway, they actually do during their onboarding phases, as soon as they get a lot of questions in one specific area. So let's say, I don't know, stocks, for example, and how stocks works. So basically in French, they actually put together a synchronous video to really explain in detail. So, it's a 30-minute long video, but it explains in details. And so all the questions about that, and that's a lot of times gain actually. So if I were to do something asynchronous, it will be to answer some kind of a FAQ, like, to answer those questions.
Very interesting. It's crazy how these times make us reach to a limit in a way. We're not actors, right? So recording a video can feel pretty weird, and I can totally understand. And in the meantime, we've been all using tools like yours, and we see ourselves, we see our face all day. We were not used to have this mirror all the time.
And at the same time, the thing that is interesting is people are starting to be more understanding, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's okay to have a background when you have a Christmas tree. And speaking of Christmas tree, because actually I do have a Christmas tree at home, and whenever I have a meeting, people say, "Oh, you have a Christmas tree?" Yes, I do have a Christmas tree. And that's all right. It's okay to not wear makeup or whatever, or because, it's just stupid. You're yourself, you live in a house like everyone else, and and that's all right. People are being more understanding, and they start to realize that what is important actually the thing that you're saying, not how you look. And I think that's actually a step forward, if you ask me.
Totally. I see what you mean. The tolerance. We're more tolerant. We see our colleagues are humans as well. We see their interior. All right. There is a question. How do you make sure new team members hired remotely feel integrated in the team?
So there is a lot of, it's a combination of all the small things. I don't think there is like one big rock to push. It's a lot of small rocks that make you go on the right path. For example, for us is taking the time to present yourself on Slack, and we make sure that it is actually on Slack and not on video or whatever, because sometimes you don't know, the person can be shy, or it's really a tough exercise, and we don't want to impose that. So we make it on Slack, take the time to write some cool text, and usually people we ask people to react, to bounce back on that and create a conversation, ignition something, create some bounds like this. Also, as I said, a lot of meetings on the first 2 weeks to make sure they meet as much people as possible. Third thing will be to participate in all the small. We have this room, Lifetime. We can actually create evergreen rooms with one link, and then you can join and you jump on stage, and that's it. And we have this room specifically dedicated to coffee shops, coffee breaks. I mean, you have the other one that is specifically dedicated to games, and a third specifically dedicated to apéro drinks, whatever, on the Friday night. So we try to push those as much as possible whenever there is someone new to participate to a drink party or to a Among Us game or whatever, so they can actually have conversations with them outside of the professional kind of context. So that's one of the things. And also, for example, when people fill out the onboarding form, we try to ask as many, not personal details, but the things they like. So typically conversation starter. So what food they like, what Hogwarts house they belong to, for example, for the Harry Potter fan. That kind of small stuff, that creates relief on the people.
Totally, I get it. And right now, are you looking for sales people or more product people, engineers? What kind of people are you looking for?
I'm looking for all kind of people. We have about more than 100 positions open. And I'm pretty much all the, mostly sales, mostly care, and I was going to say mostly engineers, so basically all the positions. But yeah, those are the three main teams that we're looking for.
All right. For international remote hires, what approach do you recommend? Freelance, opening entity, any other?
That's a really good question, and that's really good timing to ask that question. So the way we went with, so for the US teams, for the people outside of France, at least, so outside of not French and outside of France, is going with a freelance contract. So it doesn't mean, for a long time, it bothered me because, fundamentally it is a freelance contract, but we try to mimic as much as possible, whatever benefits they can have from a French contract. So it goes with all the benefits you can imagine. We want to provide that for them. It could be gears, it could be hardware, it could be supplement in terms of salary to access a healthcare, all that stuff we want to provide them. And also, it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in Mauritius, you can live in San Francisco, you can live in Paris. You're going to get the same thing based on, it doesn't matter where you live. So that's another thing. And so freelance contracts is what we went for. This is still what we have today. I think the next step for us will be to probably have entities as soon as we have a certain threshold of people, and other steps in the middle will have also this, I don't know how you call that in French, portage, in English actually, portage. Anyway, so, moving, there is, you have a third party doing the contracts for you for another threshold. So progressively move to an entity, have a ladder as soon as you get more people and more people. Otherwise, from an admin standpoint, there could be a risk. I think one thing that I can recommend for you guys, if you're interested in hiring remotes, there is this amazing company called Deel, so DEEL. And
actually,
Alex, oh, you know them?
Yeah.
Okay, so they handle contracts, freelance contract, and also portage, and it's pretty cool.
Exactly. Alex Boisis, who is the CEO of Deel, will be talking. I think it's not the next one, but later on. Oh, actually, it's the next one.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's a perfect transition.
Wow, look at that.
It was a pleasure, Gilles. Thank you very much. I think we've learned a lot. Thank you a lot, and I wish you the best for hiring amazing people at Lifetime.
Right. See you. Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye-bye. All right, so he made the transition so perfect for me. We're going to switch right now to breaking barriers to hire the best talent with two amazing speakers. You have Alex Boisiz, who is the CEO at Deal. So Alex solves a big challenge, obviously, that come with moving to a distributed and global workforce, payroll and compliance. 700 companies already use Deal to onboard their international teams and manage international payments without having to worry about the complex overhead that comes with specific currency and labor law requirements. Alex is backed by Y Combinator, Andreessen Horowitz, and Y-Spark Capital. And Margot, as well, is joining us. Margot joined Talent.io 5 years ago after launching a first tech startup. And today, Margot is in charge of leading the operations for most of the market of Talent.io, which is in Paris. And she recently started the remote recruitment to answer the need that we are all facing right now, which is hiring talent remotely. And both of them are going to talk about how you can break down the barriers to hire talent, the best talent around the world. So welcome, Alex. Welcome, Margot. Are you coming on stage? Yes. Hello, Margot. Hello, Alex. Thank you very much. All right. So I let you start this. And I'm leaving you. I saw Alex. Alex is coming as well. Yes. I don't know if Alex is.
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. I'm leaving you. Yes, there is a sound problem, Alex. With we hear a lot of sound. Maybe it's your headphones. You should put headphones. Okay, Alex, maybe you should put headphones.
De mon côté à moi? No, on my side.
No, sorry.
Okay, on their side. Okay.
Yes. Well, Alex, Margot, while the other Alex is fixing his problem, maybe you could start introducing yourself, talking about what you do. I'm leaving you, and Alex will join you. And if there is a problem, I'm sure you will handle the conversation perfectly. See you.
Thank you, Alice, and welcome, Alex and Margot. 12 years ago, I heard a quote, which is, "The world is but one country and mankind its citizen." And this quote changed my life forever. It has been a driving force in my life. And this is why I'm so happy that we're talking about breaking barriers to hire the best talent with you guys today. And I can promise to anyone listening right now that they're going to get great insights, because I know about you guys. And just, Alice already introduced, but just to say, Margot is managing a huge team of experts in finding the best tech talent you need in Europe, and she's also leading the remote element of that. So she has a lot of insights on that, and she's also an entrepreneur. And Alex was today on the Forbes 30 under 30 in the finance category, and the serial entrepreneur that really has a lot to share. So I'm really, really excited, and I know for sure that you guys will add massive value. And I want to start by asking, you first, Margot, what does it mean in your startup to break barriers to hire the best talent?
So I guess for talent, I'm hearing myself in the bar. It's better. So I guess for talent, so just for client first, we can see like before the crisis, COVID crisis, startup, were try to unlock international pipe of candidates by asking them to move in their country. And actually in 2019, it was like representation of 6% of recruitment. So it was kind of the first step one about, breaking barriers. And since the COVID crisis, we can see more and more starting hiring remotely talent, first in their country, And now the step 3 is starting, as they're starting to hiring remote candidates anywhere in the world. And at Talent, actually, we are used to work like that because we have office in 5 countries. So even if we were not working remotely, we were working with people in 5 different countries. So we had to work like that.
Thank you, Margot. What I really love about Talent as a company, and this is very funny, is that you guys select the companies that are allowed to make offers to you tech guys. You know, you're going to talk about this later, but you really went to the big level of recruiting game. And you, Alex, what does it mean for you and Dil to break barriers to hire the best talent?
Well, you know, I have lived in so many countries, so hiring people in different countries or where I've lived before has always been something that I've done. If you look at Dil, for example, we're 70 now, I think, almost, and in 25 plus countries. So I don't think we would have ever been able to build such an amazing companies without all this talent and this diversity. And I think similar to what Margot said, people are realizing that talent is everywhere, and limiting yourself to Paris or to San Francisco is not good enough. Specifically when you start competing with talent, for talent, or just straight up missing the diversity of having such a diverse team and so many people. So, you know, overall, my vision on that is that the world is becoming maybe not one country from a legal perspective, but one small place bridged by the internet, and amazing companies are going to be built the way we're building things today.
Thank you, Alex. I really like what you said about, you know, limiting your diversity. You can't do that anymore. This is not, you know, if you want to play at the highest level now, it's just the tip of the iceberg, but there is so much more going on there. And what I love about Dil is that you guys really allow the best talent to work from anywhere they want, to have access to the best jobs, but still, you know, have the family life and the conditions they want. So this is like really inspiring for me, really. And thank you for what you're doing there. Coming back to Margot, I know that you're leading the remote offer, right? And one of the things that you discovered during this pandemic and expanding is that people are still hiring from their own country. Germans are hiring remotely in Germany, UK remotely in UK, and French. Can you tell us a bit about this discovery, and why do you think this is still happening?
I think there is 2 reasons. First, it's resistance to change. You know, always hard to make things different that you were used to. And the other thing is a legal issue and all the paperwork. And I think actually Alex from Dil can help with that. Just because, for example, for now, we have clients who are like just calling us and like, okay, but if I want to, I don't know, hiring someone from Portugal, a full stack developer from Portugal, how can I do it? Because actually there is now 3 options. The first one is you can create your own entity in Portugal, but in this case, it could be like really complex and expensive, all this kind of stuff. There is option 2 about doing freelancing. Like that, you have a direct contract with a candidate. And the last option is EOR companies. So I know that Dil is doing both, actually, the freelancing and the EOR, who could be a good option regarding, you know, the law of each country. But what I saw in the last few months, I saw many companies, EOR company, you know, with innovative solution who can really help company to just kick off all this issue and get people from anywhere in the world.
Maybe you need to comment on that, Alex, as she went deep into your expertise now.
Because I talked with Alex a few weeks ago about that.
Yeah, it's an important topic. Look, I think hiring within country is also great. Like, you have amazing talents in countries, and you know, the idea of remote working is not just working internationally, although, you know, that's the narrative I like. There's also the ability to work with a guy from Bordeaux when you're in Paris, for example, and that's something that you should consider. Talent is everywhere, even if it means only 100 kilometers away. But yeah, I mean, you know, the legal complexity this is something we help with. I'm not too sure how much you want to dive into that, but there's definitely difficulties in doing it, and there's different models that's adapted per hire, and you need to think about all of this when you're hiring. It's all about giving your teammate a really good experience while limiting the overheads of the company and making sure that from a compliance standpoint, you're in the right place, right? So, although that's a topic I can spend hours on, not too sure what's the scope of where you want to limit it, but what's important is for you to understand what are your options and how do you want to go about it depending on the stage of your company.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think Margot started talking about the different options you have, in terms of the compliance, and she talked about resistance to change, right? So people are really afraid to sometimes hire this talent, and that's why they need partners like we are clients of Deals, and we need partners like that to make this happen. Can you guys try to tell us a bit, how can we help people, take these first steps and have more courage and have more, go beyond these barriers and be able to effectively make it happen and to a higher level each time, as you said, starting locally? And how does that happen to accompany someone like this, Alex?
How does that happen? Well, first you can find a great talent, right? That's the first way to go about it. But the way I look at this is, first, international hiring is not new per se, right? A lot of companies have been doing it for a long time. Whether they advertise that they were hiring remotely is a different story. What's more interesting here is when you really want to scale the company globally, right? When you're not hiring a couple of people, when you really want to build a company, the culture and everything around that. And the way I've seen people is, it starts with having the right talent and looking for talent, right? It starts with thinking, hey, how can I get that specific skill set? Or on Talent or on AngelList, someone applied for that role and they're amazing and I really want to work with them. Or someone, for example, I've seen that use case quite a bit, international founders, where the person said, hey, I have amazing friends of mine that I want to hire back in my country at some point. So that's kind of like the first step. And I think before the whole legal aspect of that, where we're just starting on our side, helping lots of companies, but a lot of companies don't even get to that point. You need to have kind of that change of, hey, this talent is really everywhere, and I really want to find the right people. And I think this is the sourcing part, and that's what's really going to change when HR and the different people ops and culture are going to see the ability and the different talents that they can find in Germany, or for example, that's when there's going to be that culture shift. So I think the problem is more sourcing the talent than helping transition at the beginning. Because helping transition, you have amazing companies that are doing it right now, and they're going to develop even further for that, to be honest.
So how do you do it, Alex, at Deal? Do you have employees from all over the world? How do you make sure you have the best talent in your company?
Yeah, we definitely do. If you look at Deal, like I said, about 65 people in 25 different countries. So fully distributed, had to figure out all the details and the nitty-gritty of every single country when we did it. Of course, we do it for our customers, so it was a lot easier for us. And when you say how do we do it? How do we do it from a process perspective, or to find those people, or what are you?
Yeah, you have companies like Talent that help you find the right. You don't go just to friends, as you mentioned, and to specific skill sets, right?
No, yeah, we do a couple of things. Yeah, we definitely work with companies like Talent, and then I think we're a little lucky on the front that we've got a decent brand where quite a few people apply for a job, so we get to have a look at some of the best talent out there. I think there's definitely a strong marketing power from employer brand perspective in being remote today, which I think a lot of companies should definitely leverage, where tons of people I know, they want a remote job. They want to move out of San Francisco, go back home, or even within country, just go not in San Francisco. And I think that really helps getting the first talent out the door, and not every company has followed just yet. I think they will. But yes, I always find the balance of combining professionals like Margot with a little bit of inbound, the best way to go about it.
And you said, Alex, that you have this desire for remote, right? So let's hear from you, Margot, as you're the expert in the field and having the best tech talents there in your amazing database. And you select the companies that can actually make offers to your talent. And these talents, every Monday, they have these 10 offers they can choose from. They are really well treated. Can you tell to the entrepreneurs listening, right, how can they be making the most to attract this such desired talent by also using the remote element maybe to attract them in a sense?
Actually, it's really interesting because remote became really like a good point to become like attractive for a candidate. I saw it because they have like their acceptance rates can be like really bigger than others, so it's really interesting. And I guess now what talents likes it's a good culture environment, low authority environment, be able to work from anywhere, a company who have a good processes in remote. Because what I saw from the beginning, and actually that's why I think we will have more and more company who will switch in full remote. It's taking time to switch in full remote. You need to change your way of communication, the way you're doing meeting, the way you share knowledge, all this kind of stuff. And it's really important to be ready to embrace talent with you and having the good processes. So you need to have that. You need as well to have a good onboarding program, because if you onboard someone all alone, it can be hard for them. So you need to be really careful of that. For example, us at Talent, even so, we were like on site. Now we are like since the crisis, we are hybrid remote, and we really want to keep this. But we have like an onboarding program that we're calling Talent University. And the idea is that every 2 months, all the new employees are coming from everywhere. And like that, they can meet all the team. They can meet the founders. They can understand our value, because the value are really, really important. Candidates need to feel the value if you want them to be with you and growing with your company. So I think it could be the three things, like remote, value, and onboarding program. Don't forget them.
Thank you, Margot. I really like the Talent University element as a way to really show that it can be remote and attract this talent, and you need to have the good processes and the onboarding and the culture. But to have these tech talents that are really rare resource, you mentioned to me that you have to be sexy as a company as well, and your product has to be sexy in a sense. Can you just say a bit more about how does one make, how do you validate in your selection process the companies that are sexy enough for your tech talent?
Yeah. So actually, we talked about last time about large firm versus startup. I think first there is two types of candidates. They don't all want to go in large firm. We have a lot of candidates who want to be in startup because they will have more impact in startup. They need to, so new generation need to find a purpose on their job. They need to know why they are doing this, having impact in their job, and feel that they are wanted, and they will be, the company will take care of them as well as people, not as a number. So this needs to be really part of the interview process to make them coming in your company. And for tech profile, at least, anyway, they need to love like the framework, the technology, to be, always like innovative. They will create something. So this is what it's exciting for them.
I saw someone writing in the chat that, for a startup is different from a corporate. You're wanted there. You feel important. You know that they need you to grow. So that's the big difference. And what about you, Alex? What makes Deal sexy? How do you attract the best?
Can you tell me who's really sexy? I think, employer brand is really important. I think there's different stage within a company where that becomes a little more your focus, where you even hire someone to make sure that the employment brand, the brand from the talent perspective is really, really great. I think different stages requires different things. We're still in somewhat of the earlier phase where we're growing really fast, and this is kind of our focus. And I think there's lots of different ways you can build your brand. at those different stages. So at the beginning, right now for us, we're clearly in a market that's quite interesting. We're clearly evolving and growing pretty fast, and we have really cool customer logos, for example, and that definitely attracts talents, right? Whether it's through social media or through the fact that some of our customers are happy enough to talk about the product, that quite helps. At different stages, you incentivize people with different things, right? When you're a small startup and you need to figure things out, it's a mix of having the flexibility that Margot was talking about, the right packages to attract them, and the right vision, right? I think vision is quite important. I think the best talent usually want to work for something that's quite impactful. So, as an entrepreneur, your job is to sell all the time, right? You sell to investors, you sell to customers, but more importantly, you sell to your team. Right, so selling the right vision, selling the right product, where are you going and why it matters? Because a talented engineer can go work for any other company, right? And for them to choose you, it means you have something there that they're really attracted by. So there's lots of steps you can take, long story short, in building your brand for it to be attractive for your future employees. But stay true to yourself, make sure your values are there and people can clearly see what matters to you, because not every talent is right for your company and vice versa. And to make sure your inbound grows, make sure that in my opinion, this form of building in public, I really like that aspect, which is share the progress of the company, share it with the different people on social or different channels so that they can see that you're making progress. And they want to be part of that ride, right? If you're building everything and you're just expecting people to come to you without really sharing, it's a bit tougher, let's say.
I really like what you said, Alex, about the vision, right? Especially companies like you that are scaling, that are growing fast. You need to really show everyone where you're going, why you're going there for them to join you. And entrepreneurs like you have to spend actually a lot of energy and time. This is something that Margot was telling me, recruiting a tech talent can't be a side job. You have to actually be focusing energy on that. And then in a minute, I will open to questions. I will see with the Families team if we have questions from the audience. But before that, I just want to ask one more very practical question to both of you. Can you guys each give some concrete advice on people that want to start leveraging this global talent pool, but they are a bit stuck? They are, they are starting, maybe they're not scaling in the same speed. What are some low-hanging fruits? What are some small steps they can take to start making their talent pool a bit broader and finding a way to start accessing more diversity of talent and onboarding them in more creative ways? Of course, partner with Deel and Talent.io, that's obvious, but what else can they do?
So actually, they could start to look at the candidate, because I think it could be a good thing to see the profile you're missing if you're not opening your mind about this type of candidate. Because, for example, I don't know if you're looking, for example, what is something people always asking, like a full stack developer, 3 years experience, Ruby on Rails and React.js. Kind of a profit to get, like you don't have like 100 profile available at the same time. But if you like say, okay, I don't want to look this profile only in France, I want to open to all Europe, you could have 20 candidates, 30 candidates at the same time. So what do you want? You want the best talent for your team. So I think the first thing is to look the stars, the pépite, how we're calling them, who are available in all the world. And when you talk with this candidate, after you're like, okay, I will make effort and I will understand how I can make it. And after, I guess, now there is so many solutions to do it and to organize yourself, then you know that if you know that you will have best talent with remote work, you will go. And now I think, like Oussama said during the introduction, at the beginning we didn't know if it was possible to succeed with your company in full remote, and we saw now that it's possible. So you just need to take the step and look at the talent.
Yeah, I will add on that. Rather, like, I think taking the step and looking at the talent is great. I think just make the hire. What are you going to lose, right? Hire 1%, see how it goes. Make sure it's vetted, make sure the culture is a good fit. But try. And that's the best way. It's the opportunity cost in hiring an engineer that's not in San Francisco is quite low versus the Bay Area for sure. So, I'm a bit biased. I've always built company distributed because I could never afford developers in Israel or in San Francisco. So I never really had a choice. But now, when I talk to companies, I look at them and like, there's so many, the profiles applying. I don't know if it's right. I don't know. They just go through your interview process, make the leap, and see what happens.
I love your tips. Let's see if we have questions. I love the make the hire, try, get started, and also look at the candidate, understand them, talk to them, see if you can be flexible about the details of what you really wanted. The perfect tech is never going to happen. So you have to be more flexible. Do we have questions from the audience? Question for Margot. What are you seeing more from your clients? Is it remote hiring within the same country, region, or remote hiring from countries on zones like Asia, Latin America?
Okay, so about that, actually, we started. So me, I took the remote initiative only 2 months ago. So we launched. What we're doing at Talent, we always, make tests before. So we are on the test launch. So we started 2 months ago. We approved 100 candidates. In Europe for now, and actually in Europe, in country we were already operate because it was easier for us to find the candidate. And what is interesting, because we made 15 hiring since in 2 months, so it's quite good, and the conversion rate is really good. And only 5 of them are cross-border. So we need to work on that. Actually, none of the cross-border deals are coming from France yet. Mainly they are coming from UK, because I think they're maybe more ready for this, maybe with Brexit or everything, I don't know. But actually, mainly they are coming from there, and we have one or two from Germany, and now we need to work on French companies who are still, sometimes it's hard. So what we are doing right now is, trying to train all our account manager about remote, international remote, to be sure that they will be able to reassure them, as I think it will be the future of work, actually. So they need to go.
Great. Another final question, maybe, before we close, from the public. What are your thoughts about working with internal ambassadors in social media?
Well, I'll take that. I'm not sure what you mean by internal ambassadors, but I think social media today is very important, and it's a big piece, for example, of our marketing and our employer brand. Since we talk about it, we get a lot of outreach for that. So whatever are the right steps for you in order to make it work, you should spend the time and spend the money there. So for example, at Deal, we've got a couple of people working on social, making sure that we scale and making sure that people can see what we're doing and the directions we're going at the company. So if by internal ambassador you mean community managers you hire to make sure your social is good, you should definitely do that. Or I don't know if you meant that per country, but whatever you meant there, invest in that, because God knows it definitely helped us quite a bit. So I'm sure it can help you.
I think it's more about internal people who shares your hiring need on social media now. I guess. No, I'm not sure. But if it's that, yes, of course, having your team who is using social media to share your job position, opportunities, you need to use that, because this is, I think, what we're calling, for us, we're calling referral at Talent. It's we're always saying to our client, if you can have a referral, do it. It will be the best way for you.
Yes, referral is a very big thing. In the next panel, we even have, someone from Facebook that was getting referral from people that they didn't hire in the job interview, and they recommended someone they hired, So it's if you have a proper process, you can even have candidates that you don't hire doing that, but your internal workforce really has to be there to help you get the best talent. So thank you so much, Margot and Alex, for your great contribution. I think you've started to break some barriers here for all of our audience to go beyond and get better talent. So thank you for your contribution, and back to you, Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you to both Alex and Margot. It was super cool. All right. I hope you are still here. I hope you are still concentrated, because we are now about to talk about how to create an amazing culture to retain people. And for this discussion, I am welcoming amazing speakers. Let me change the slide. Yes. Amazing speakers. We have Charles from Facebook, Julia from AWS, and Eleonora from Mindvalley. I'm going to introduce you to them. So very briefly, because you're going to meet them. Julia is responsible for helping startups scale and achieve their fullest potential using AWS infrastructure and technology. She works on partnering with the most influential incubators, accelerators, and startup organizations in France, like the Family, for instance. And of course, we have another amazing speaker, Charles Guillemet. He has more than 10 years of recruiting experience in the Silicon Valley. He's currently heading up product leadership, recruiting at Facebook. And prior to Facebook, he was head of recruitment at Neuralink, meaning that he was working closely with Elon Musk and his chief of staff to fill some of the most niche positions in the world. He also scaled Gusto from 30 to 600 employees in 3 years, leading a team of 30 recruiters across 2 offices. He's passionate about scaling processes and obsessed over efficiency. And last but not least, Eleonora Valenti. She believes that working careers are a way for us to express ourselves. Her mission is to help others define their core drive and purpose. I'm so thrilled that she is here at Mindvalley. Eleonora is hiring world-class talent from all over the world to join one mission, raising human consciousness and shaping the future of education. I don't know if you know Mindvalley, if you are already aware of what they do, but it's really, really, really amazing. So welcome to the 3 of you, Charles, Eleonora, Julia. How are you?
Hi guys.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for being here. So maybe in a few words, we could start by describing your company's culture, because it's all about culture, okay? How to create an environment where people feel at ease to stay, and they are happy to stay, actually. They don't want to go anywhere else. They are happy here. How would you describe the culture in your company? And can you give me a few examples of how it plays out in employees' life, and what remains as well, and what has changed with COVID? Maybe, let's give the first round to Charles. He's the man.
Cool. Hi guys, nice to meet you. So I'm Charles. I am currently in the US, so it's daylight for me. I think, a couple of things when you want to retain folks, and this summit is really about recruiting and hiring. It starts at the very, very beginning. It starts at the process that you have in place when you want to hire folks. Like, what are the attributes? What are the elements in the company, at your company personally, that are really important to retain folks? What makes them top performers? What makes them happy? And how do you screen against that? So I think every companies that I've been at, whether it's Gusto, Neuralink, Facebook today, you will realize that at every interview process, you essentially have like questions and bank of questions that are screening against attributes that are really important to your own company. So I will start there because essentially as you recruit and interview folks, you actually enforce that culture over and over time with your own employees, right? Like they start identifying to it, they start relating to it, and they really live and breathe those attributes as they interview candidates. So my first advice, if there's anything that we can remember, is essentially like there are a couple of top performers at the company. There's a few folks that have identified top attributes that really embodies the culture of your company. Like let's start screening against those, and let's start running interviews against those attributes.
Cool. Thank you, Charles. Maybe we could switch to Julia.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, Amazon's culture and our values are driven by our very famous leadership principles, which aren't just a pretty inspirational wall hanging, right? These principles work hard, just like we do. And we use them every day, whether we're discussing ideas for a new project, deciding on the best solution for a customer, or interviewing candidates. It's just one of the things that makes Amazon very peculiar. We hire, we reward, we promote based on these leadership principles. And when I think about culture at Amazon, we have a strong culture of innovation, and we hire builders. And we also learn from failures, and this encourages employees to innovate. Anyone has an Amazon Fire Phone or heard of an Amazon Fire Phone? No, right? Well, we built a phone and no one wanted to buy it. But we took the teams and the learnings from building a Fire Phone and we moved them around Amazon. And you've seen innovations like Amazon Alexa, where many of the technologies that we used to build the Fire Phone were used. We also built something called Amazon Auction because we wanted to compete with eBay. Didn't go well, but again, we learned from that and we built a marketplace. And now we have Amazon Marketplace and AWS Marketplace. So if you have to remember one thing, these innovations came from Amazon employees. The same Amazon employees who are customer obsessed, who are willing to fail and take risks, who are willing to be misunderstood, and who have that unique culture.
Thank you, Julia. Very clear. Eleonora, how would you describe the culture at Mindvalley?
Hi everyone. Where to start? This is such a key question for Mindvalley, and I'd like to answer by starting with my own experience. So I joined the company a bit more than 2 years ago. Imagine that I was coming from more of a corporate environment. So I worked for Nike for more than 6 years. And then what I knew before joining Mindvalley is that Mindvalley had a huge, bold mission, which is to transform education and replace the traditional way of education with lifelong learning. So I knew that there would have been a lot of growth, technology involved, and I knew that the team was very young in a sense of creative spirit. I knew that it was very international, but when I actually landed in Malaysia, this is where I'm based right now, this is where the headquarters is, it was like beyond my imagination. And even the first month in the company, so the first day they told me, take it easy, we don't start meetings before 10:30. So we believe in morning autonomy and you have time to study, working out, do your work, whatever you prefer. And then the first meeting of your onboarding day is going to be 10:30. So surprise number one. And then a few other surprises was that in the company at the time when I joined was about 250 people, and we already had more than 50, 55 different nationalities. So even in Malaysia, it was an extremely diverse team. And that was so exciting that, and the team was so proud of it, that traditionally we always had culture days to celebrate the most represented nationalities and cultures in the company. So that element of fun and sharing was always there. So that is one of the key things, of course, with what people talk about, play hard and work hard. But for Mindvalley, the fun part and the play part, the connection part was really, really important. So this is to give some examples of what the foundational values of the company have been, because the way our CEO and founder built it, and this for sure has been on unity, so believing in that diversity and already accepting people from everywhere in the world. So talking about remote later, this was a very natural thing for us. The second aspect is envisioning, so always looking at what about the future. Let's not just get stuck on what we're doing right now, but what is next? What is the next innovation? This is very much part of the culture. And the third, but not least, because we are an education company, and especially transformational education company, we believe not just in learning, but in really transforming lives. This is what we do for our customers. This is what we do for our team. So it means that learning, being curious, trying, and innovating are key parts of how we do things. So that connection aspect, that fun aspect, for sure, it's still part of our culture, but we are still reinventing the way we do things virtually, for sure.
Yeah, and you are totally embodying this international culture, because you're an Italian based in Malaysia, working for a Silicon Valley startup, right? At the beginning, the story of Mindvalley is in Silicon Valley, right?
In New York, actually, was founded. But Vishen, he studied, worked in California for a little bit, then founded Mindvalley in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, and we often go back to the story of the founder, you know, and that's a way to understand the culture. I often see, and especially for the early stage startups, right? We know that the culture is directly coming from the founders, and the founders, they represent that culture. And we often, when we are exterior to the company, we look at the founders, we try to understand their lives. The founders now of big companies are becoming almost stars, and we follow them, right? And there is, their story is really important for the culture of the company. Do you feel close, to the founder of the, I mean, spiritually, emotionally, or very concretely in terms of organization? Do you feel close to the story of the founding team? Maybe, yeah.
I'm happy to take this one. So I won't talk too much about Mark Zuckerberg, because I think everybody can read things online about Facebook. But there's the company that I was at before, prior to Neuralink and Facebook, was called Gusto. And that was really, really important to them, to the co-founders, to essentially like kind of engrave what they are thinking about the company and how they wanted to scale the future. And to go back to what Julia mentioned about Amazon, Amazon is incredible about the way they've scaled that from probably the very top all the way to the bottom at scale with like thousands and thousands of people. But I think it's actually duplicatable, right? You can do that at a startup as well. You can come up with like a couple of attributes that your co-founders really like embody. It could be like, hey, I want my employees to have no ego, or I want my employees to have like a builder mindset, or I want my employees to be like company first or mission first. And whatever is really important to the co-founders, you can essentially like boil down to a couple of like ways to screen against that. And again, I think it comes back to the founders really identifying like the 4 to 5 core values that they really, maybe with Amazon there's 13 of them or 14, but with a small startup you can start with like a couple of nuggets of like 4 to 5, and then look for those as they're really important for the founders. And then you can teach your employees how to look for those when you talk to the candidates and when you interview candidates. And then after time, it sort of like becomes like what you live and breathe over and over again. And so to go back to your question, I really think this is the influence of the co-founders. That's how they influence the culture of the company over and over again.
That was just a question like that coming up to my mind. I would like to talk about the way you communicate your culture. I would like to talk about how do you make sure that you attract the right talent by communicating your culture. So, like I know that recently Mindvalley, for instance, you've been hiring a lot. And how did you leverage your culture to do so, Eleonora?
Yeah, that communication, the way things are said is extremely important. And that's why even before joining Mindvalley, this was such a fascinating experience to hear about, because and connected to the values before, by the way, it is about the value, and it is even very interesting about the story of the founder. So if the founder is embodying and explaining why these values are so important, it does become such a powerful attraction story. So for example, in our case, Vishen, he did found Mindvalley in the US, but because it was a few years after 9/11, he was coming from a Muslim country. He was not a Muslim, but he had a lot of restrictions as an entrepreneur in the US. So he decided at some point, okay, fine, I'll go back to my home country. I'll go back to Kuala Lumpur, but I will make the damn best company in the world. So then the world will come to Kuala Lumpur, even though nobody knows about it. So this was such a strong drive to do whatever it took to attract the talent. And he got very resourceful, and on purpose, he tried to define early on what is my value. And that's why the unity, because like, okay, I have to leave the US, but doesn't matter where I am. I want everybody in the world to have the same opportunities, right? So this is one of the messages that he always talked about. And also one other unique, the way Mindvalley is always communicated is not just talk about in terms of job description, but talk about in terms of manifesto. So for example, very concretely in the career page of Mindvalley, we do have a page that is the manifesto. And this is like the few beliefs, the most important beliefs that we have about the world and how work is going to change in the future. And one of those statements is that we are not just a Malaysian company or an American company, we are an Earth company. And this is one of the most common things that candidates quote, because they see it. Or another one is the job is somehow a dirty word. It shouldn't be anymore working 9 to 5, but it should be contributing to the company's mission, and at the same time, like having the company helping you achieve your own mission. So these are some of the things that we believe in, and this has made it possible to attract a lot of very, very talented people in every field. And I truly believe that about talent, and that the best talent in the world, they're looking for autonomy, they're looking for challenge, they're looking for innovation and purpose. And for sure, Mindvalley has always communicated the mission. And one way we're doing right now, for example, is just last week we had a virtual event for Estonia, because we do have a second office in Estonia, and we are getting very famous over there, but we are expanding our tech team there for the first time. So Vishen, so our founder and CEO himself, he spoke to more like around 500 people about the mission of Mindvalley, what we're building, all the innovations that are in the pipeline. So these are some ways to really make difference and attract the people that are right for your culture.
Cool. Thank you, Eleonora. Julia, maybe you could answer that question. How do you communicate about your culture to make sure to attract the best talents?
Absolutely. So at Amazon and at AWS, we hire based on these leadership principles, and it starts really with recruiting, and we have a high bar. We are crystal clear about our values, attitudes, and what we expect from people and what we expect from new hires. And this is really a first step in ensuring that, number one, we're hiring the right people based on our culture and our leadership principles. And secondly, that candidates know what to expect if they get hired. Our LPs are authentic and really represent who the company is and how we expect employees to behave. And so using those leadership principles to hire, to reward, to promote, to help in most situations where we have trade-offs, prioritization, strategy, or key scenarios is super important. So these LPs are used every day as a shared vocabulary. And we even have leadership principle awards to really recognize outstanding employees. So this is how we really embody our culture from the very early stages.
Thank you very much, Julia. Charles, your turn.
Yeah, so a lot of things that have been said, I totally agree with. I think there's 3 steps. One is what Julia just mentioned, hiring, interviewing. It started at recruiting. So basically, whatever culture you've defined, you got to screen against it, and you start with this at the very top of the funnel, almost like by interviewing candidates against those attributes. Then you go down to onboarding. That's the second step, where essentially as new hires come and join your company, the first day that they onboard, you basically already tell them what the culture is and what the values are and how people operate in that system. And then the third thing that I think is really important is leading by example. So if you think about all the leaders in your organization, the moment they stop leading by example or actually enforcing those attributes, you kind of lose that culture. So I think what's really important is wherever it's the CEO, the leaders, whether it's transparency or it's like no meeting Wednesday or it's like, performance review, like everybody's got to do those cultural things to be enforced and to be followed. So just to recap, like in my mind, there's like 3 things: interviewing, onboarding, and leading by example for that.
Cool. Charles, stay with me. I would like to talk about something else. Like, how do you make in your team everybody become a recruiter? Because that's one of your beliefs, right? It's an ambassador's game. You want your own team to be the ones who will refer new people and who will represent the brand and who will attract high talented people.
Yeah, so it's funny, right? Like almost when you interview at a company as a recruiter or as someone in the people space, you kind of want to ask the co-founders or like the leadership team, like what do they do for recruiting? Like, hey, what do you do? How do you spend your day? What have you done in the past to help with recruiting? And you kind of get indicators from the execs or the co-founders, how much do they truly believe and in recruiting? And recruiting isn't something that has to be done, by just one team. You source, then you interview, then you hire. That just doesn't work. That model doesn't apply to any successful company. It's really teamwork. It's from the hiring manager that can help with sourcing and doing interviews and defining the roles and the candidates. It's from the recruiting team helping out as well. It's from the executive team like enforcing that we have a good bar. And I'm pretty passionate about that. Like, I think the recruiting team is an enhancement, an empowerment to how you're going to recruit on your company, but it's not like I don't think they can successfully achieve the hiring goals and the hiring bar just on their own. You've got to have partners, and the partners is everybody on the team. That's one thing. The second thing is, if you decide to join the company, you are owner of the company. You essentially like become an owner, part of the company. And being part of the company, being an owner of the company is actually like helping with recruiting. You've got to participate. You've got to interviews. You've got to source. You've got to send referrals. You've got to do all these things to help the company grow. It's not all on the recruiting team. It just won't succeed, I think, with just one recruiting unit. It's got to be everybody. We are all recruiters.
Julia, maybe you can answer as well. How do you make sure that everybody among your team becomes a recruiter?
Yeah, and I agree 100% with Charles. Hiring at AWS is every employee's job. And we often run referral farming sessions, even using LinkedIn. Just to give you my personal experience, when I joined AWS, I took a training called Make Great Hiring Decisions. And then I started shadowing real interviews happening at Amazon. So I would be in a room, very quiet, just observing what's going on. And the objective for me was to listen and to learn how to interview the Amazon way. And after 4 shadowings, it became my turn to interview and to be reverse shadowed. So this means that an experienced Amazon interviewer actually reverse shadowed me to provide feedback on what I could improve. Now I'm autonomous with recruiting, and I interview 3 to 4 people every month. I interview across AWS, all sorts of roles, could be technical, it could be business. And I think it's very, very important to have every single employee involved so that we make sure that we hire people we want to work with eventually, right? We have a process on gathering evidence and data, writing feedback in a very specific way, and also attending debrief sessions and participating in the final decision. As an AWS employee, I have a voice and I'm involved until the very last step, which is also extremely important. So this is my experience at Amazon.
Cool. I'm wondering, what is the Amazon way? When you say, I understand the way to interview, what does it mean?
It means that we have a very structured process. So starting with a phone screen to look at cultural fit and also the job fit. Then having, testing 2 leadership principles per person, writing the feedback in a very data-centric way, then participating to the debrief when sometimes people disagree and you have to counter the other person. So it's very unique. I've never seen this at another company before. So this is why I think it's very peculiar. And before starting, the interviews, you definitely need to learn how it's done.
Thank you, Julia. Eleonora, maybe you could answer as well. How do you make it become a reality that the people become recruiters?
I agree already with the things that Julia and Charles have said. Is first involving people early on, even like the whole team, for example, of a specific position before the recruitment starts. What is the expectation? What is the objective? The attributes for the role, for sure, and also creating space for them to share their network. And it is so important because even if maybe it's the recruiter that is coordinating the process or making sure that the whatever guideline of the companies are followed, but if there is even one person that is interviewing and that is not going to excite the candidate, they are going to decide to go for another company. So referral is a great way, but ultimately every single person that is interviewing is an ambassador of the company and is going to either incentivize or not at all the candidate. So it is important that that there is alignment and a few practical things like aligning interviews, making sure that not everybody's asking the same thing, or and that there is less bias, like not the same type of people looking at the same thing. So having that combination is for sure very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Eleonora. Okay, 2020 has been a special year, right? We've all had to adapt to this very special times. Now, how do you feel that your company has been adapting to this switch to remote work, and how do you feel like the culture in your company in this remote world can really retain people to keep on working with joy, achieving the mission? The mission is the same, but the world has changed. Maybe Charles, you want to start?
Sure. I think it's about sort of the mentality that you want to adapt to, but this is probably true in real life as well. And I think this is probably true for everybody on this panel as well as all the other guest speakers. Is like, I think what I've been most impressed in 2020 is people that can turn a situation into an opportunity and really turn into something that's like, okay, well, we are in this situation today. Like, how can we make the best out of it? And I mean, maybe this conference today, this summit is like another example of like, okay, well, maybe I would not have been able to be in France for this summit, and now we can do it virtually, and you know, we have more people attending. I think at Facebook, one thing that I've noticed, and I only speak for myself, is that kind of mentality to be like, okay, this is a situation, like, how can we like turn this into the best opportunity? So for one, on the recruiting front, I feel Mark has said many times, like, hey, this 2020 actually needs to be a year where we need to double down and hire even more because we have more opportunities on the market. So we should just go for it. It's about, one thing that I noticed as well is we had one or two folks working remotely, but really not the entire team was working remotely. And now, as you know, everybody is working remotely, and that created such a much better team culture. Everybody not one person feels siloed and isolated, but we have the entire team actually working remotely, having the same setup. So we've got to come together. Weirdly enough, we've had to come closer together than we were in the past. So I think the best answer is like, how do you adapt to the situation? And instead of having the mentality about, hey, like blaming 2020 because that happened, you're like, okay, well, we have this situation. Let's make the best out of it.
Cool. I love your answer. Thank you, Charles. Julia, maybe you want to keep on that one?
Absolutely. And to your point, Charles, I think we're lucky to be able to work remotely. Many people had to work during those conditions. And I agree. I think it's the mentality at Amazon. And despite our size, we keep a spirit of entrepreneurship, and we hire builders. We empower people to take the right decisions. So you might not be with your manager in the same room on a specific day, but you're given the freedom to make decisions. I was talking about leadership principles. One of our leadership principles is ownership. Ownership is big at Amazon, which means that you are empowered to work on new projects. You are empowered to find new ways to answer to customer needs. You're like the mini CEO of your company. And this gives people purpose. They understand why they're working on a specific project. They see the global picture, and they feel like their work matters. So, you know, we've been adapting, absolutely, with recruiting, with onboarding. We've been assigning an onboarding buddy to every single new hire to make sure that in addition of the team and the manager, there is someone to talk to when you have a question, when you have a specific need. Things have changed, but I think, again, it's about who you are deep down and how you're able to transform a problem, a difficult situation, into an opportunity to do even better, to reach even more people, and to stay, you know, united until this situation ends, hopefully.
Cool. Thank you. Eleonora, unless you want to add something, I would like to switch to an important matter. It is diversity. Okay, so in the introduction, my co-founder Osama said that there was an opportunity actually right now in the remote world. Is we feel like as if behind our screens we would be less biased. I don't know, but we feel like it's an opportunity for more diversity to finally feel included in more job opportunities. How do you make sure in your companies? What are the mechanisms that are set up to attract that diversity? Yeah, go for it, Eleonora.
I was thinking very practically. So, for example, there has been such a democratization of our current team in these months, because, as I said, we had traditionally two headquarters, so one in Malaysia, the other one in Estonia, and And then the thing that we added is that we started hiring people fully remotely that we haven't done before as much. So that aspect already made us gave a lot more inclusion for sure to our Estonian team, and I hear from them every day. Before, it used to be like time zone difference, or maybe that they were not physically included, and now we're just everybody's remotely. So that has been a big effect on everybody. And at the same time, even when it comes to hiring and onboarding people, the same. Like we used to have physical onboarding, well, now everybody is online. So there has been some practices for sure that have made it easier to include the current team. And about attracting diversity, this, at least for us, it is an intention, is a clear intention that we don't want talent to be restricted by borders, connected to the talk and the interview you had just before, but it is a reality. And right now it is a matter of choice. Like I keep hearing from some organization, and even in my home country, there's still some resistance. Oh, this is just a transitional period. Like, no, what if this is the reality that we choose for the future? Why do we have to go back to the normal situation? What if this is the way we choose to work in the future? So that increased diversity can be a superpower, and it is a choice. Letting go of some control or some standard way of doing things, but in order to gain much more innovation and creativity moving forward.
Cool. Thank you, Eleonora. Charles, at Facebook?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is Facebook related specifically, but I feel like with diversity, there's like two things. There's the idealistic point of view where we want more diversity in the company, and it makes the product better, it makes the work environment better, it's more fair to the world. Like there's like tons of like idealistic views, and then there's the reality. It's like, how do you make it happen? And this is where I think recruiting is like playing a big role, is the how to make it happen, right? So I think the few successes that I've seen and ways to, like roadmaps almost, that you can adapt with diversity is like setting an aspiring goal. It's like, where do you want to be in 4 years from now? Where are you today, and where do you want to be? And by wanting to be is like, where are the gaps in the company, and what kind of demography segments do you want to go after to improve diversity in your company? And recruiting plays a huge role in breaking down that aspiring goal in almost in like the funnel, right? Like the top of funnel, where do we need to increase diversity candidates? In the interview funnel, what are the questions that we're asking? Where are the biases? What are the interviewers? And then how do we hire those candidates, and how do we retain them? That's more of the people team after. But where I think, working from home and working remotely has played a huge advantage. And like, this is again, like, how do you turn the situation into an amazing advantage, is enabling talent coming from different locations. So in the past at Facebook, we used to be very much like location based, like, hey, you're looking for people in Menlo Park, you're looking for folks in Seattle, in New York, in Paris, in London. And now it's like location agnostic. So all of a sudden, your pool of candidate becomes like the entire world. You can just like literally go after people anywhere you want. And that solves the big problem of the top of funnel. All of a sudden you were limited to just like one location, and now you have access to such a much broader place and pool of candidates. So as far as like working from home and working remotely and the COVID situation, this has increased and augmented the pool of candidates dramatically, and has made our work much easier and better.
Cool. Yeah. So there are reasons to be optimistic on that side. And you, Julia?
Yep. So first of all, I think it's crucial to really understand both terms and their impact in the workplace. I read a metaphor the other day that really resonated with me when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to a party, and inclusion is being invited to dance, right? And at Amazon, we have specific trainings on diversity and inclusion, and specifically on the awareness of our unconscious biases. Many people have good intentions when it comes to recruiting a diverse workforce, but they don't realize that their biases get in the way of their decision making. And this is why at Amazon, we rely strongly on data and we pay very close attention to biases at every step, from writing the job description, resume, review, assessment, pre-brief, interview, etc. Secondly, we have mechanisms to attract diverse talents and build inclusive teams. So top of mind, maybe a few examples. Number one, things that you can do is to partner with your recruiter or your agency to proactively seek diverse talents. If you don't have a diverse talent pool, you're not going to hire diverse people, right? Secondly, to add gender neutral job descriptions. This is so important, making sure that your job description is not perceived as more masculine or more feminine. And you have some tools. You have some tools that can help you gender neutralize your job descriptions. 3, take inclusive hiring training. Be mindful of your blind spots. We tend to choose the people who look like us, who think like us, who talk like us. This is so true. So being aware of our own biases, I think, is also extremely important. And then I go back to your point, Eleonora, sorry. Create diverse interview panels for your loops. The people interviewing the candidates need to come from different backgrounds, have different skills and different experiences. Otherwise, I don't think it works. Good intentions don't work, unfortunately.
Great, thank you, Julia. So I want to be invited to the party. I want to dance as well.
Yes.
and there is one of the things that I want as an employee is I want to dream, and especially I think it's been accelerated with this lockdown. It was already in the place. We knew that we were a lot about talking about the purpose. Okay, it's not about the paycheck. There is a recent study on LinkedIn. I've seen it 1 week ago, saying that 63% of the people are ready to lower their paycheck and to get rid of the fancy titles if it's for a bad environment. They don't want that, right? So we are no longer able to sacrifice ourselves in the name of getting paid or having a fancy title. How do you make sure, and this will be my last question, then we'll take the questions of the audience. How do you make sure that people can dream and can feel like there is a purpose? How do you connect the role with a purpose, concretely? Who wants to start?
Wow, I think this is like one of my biggest life questions that I ask myself literally every day, every single interview that I take, and not only, it's not just about interviewing, because I do have a background in recruiting, but now my role is broader than just recruiting. So it is something that is on my mind every day, because you're totally right. And ultimately, what we spend most of our working, breathing hours at work. So people don't want to spend any more time just to feel miserable every day. And this will be even more so in the future. A full-time job will not even be required. Freelance jobs, part-time jobs, diverse career are becoming so common. And there's I think there's two things that will change over the years. One is what individuals are feeling. So more and more people are just not getting settled with, oh, I just need a job for the paycheck. No, and even it is a choice. Some people decide, fine, I like stability, I'll still go this way. But ultimately, if it doesn't work, I think there's the friction is going to be so strong that at some point breaks. And this is the typical midlife crisis. And now it's happening, by the way, for people that are 25. So it's not midlife crisis anymore. It's just even after a few years of working, if you feel that you're not personally aligned, it does become a moment of, okay, what do I do? And the other side of the coin is the organization. So the recruiters, that I feel like our role as a company is not just attracting and hooking people no matter what, but really be honest. And one way is, so in every single interview that I do, I always ask in different version. So what is your mission? What is the most important goal in your life, even outside of work? Because the more that aligns with what the person can learn in the company, the more the employee will be thriving in that environment. And if it's visible that they prefer to go in another direction, then it's fine to say that and to encourage them to do something else. So this one way is in hiring. The other thing is also while people are in the company. So for example, in Mindvalley, we use 2 exercises. One is called the 3 most important questions. So every single person in the company during their onboarding, they write down what do they want to experience in life, how they want to grow, and how they want to contribute to the world. And we have posters around the office about that, so everybody else can see. So we can help each other to be aligned with what we do. The other one is a program we have that is called Lifebook. So giving employees also the space to think, what do I really want in life? Am I in the right place? It pays back. It pays back so many times. So these are some ways to create more alignment in the future from a company point of view.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. Julia, maybe on that one?
Really quickly. From my standpoint, I think that to have purpose, employees need to see the global picture and the impact of what they're doing. We have a rule at Amazon, which is that every internal team should be small enough that it can be fed with 2 pizzas. And the goal wasn't, to cut down on the catering bill, but it's that everything we do is efficient and scalable. When you have a 2 pizza team, the team is fast, is agile, it fosters ownership, autonomy, and those small decentralized teams are nimble, and employees can really own and run what they build. I think this is critical, to be an owner and to be the mini CEO of your own company. I think this really matters for people.
Thank you. I like the vision. Charles, one last word.
Yeah. My point of view on this topic is 2 things. One is leadership and second is growth. So leadership is like, as a company, you got to do everything you can to invest into your leaders or managers. They've got to take trainings. They've got to have the right tools to empower their teams, to remove roadblocks. And the way you motivate and the way you keep your employees in the long run is by having very, very strong leaders. And growth, to the extent this is possible with your business, of course, growth is like the one thing that will keep your employees so motivated because it will stretch them. Growth isn't about getting promoted either, or getting to the next level, but it's about maybe thinking about a job that's like a lateral move because you actually increase and gain new skills, and that's a promotion on its own. And so I think when you think about how to motivate your employees and how to keep them, growth is like another big thing that could help. And it's not only about money and the paycheck and getting to the next level, it's about getting new skills and keeping them motivated.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Eleonora. Thank you, Julia. Actually, it's already the end, and I hope that the audience won't hate me, but we can't take any question because we have to move to the next part, which is the most interesting part, the most interactive part, the workshops. So thank you very much, Charles. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Eleonora.
Nice to meet you guys.
Precious.
Thank you.
Soon.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. And actually, if you want to ask any questions to Julia, you will be able to join her because she will have a workshop. So, my friends, I hope you are still here. I hope that you enjoy and stay here. Join us for the workshops. And there is a last chat roulette happening after the workshop. So you'd better stay here during this event. You're gonna meet with other participants, with people who are passionate about tech entrepreneurship, and you are welcome. So if you really want to make the most out of this event, then you have to join us now on Hopin, because that's where everything is going to happen. So on Hopin, we'll make this moment of workshops very interactive. You'll be able to enter the room, to video chat directly with the speakers, to ask all of your questions. And in case you're lost, you're never lost, my friend, because there is an app. There is an app that is showing you all of the workshops, and you can easily access them. All right. So what are these workshops? Let me introduce you to the different workshops. So you've met with Julia. Now, Julia will really more precisely, with detail, introduce you to how to hire the Amazon way. And Julia, you've heard it. So she is passionate, and she's taking care of startup in France, and she will explain you how Amazon went from 117K employees in 2013 to 750K in 2019. And I'm not even talking about the figures in 2020. So with such an impressive, impressive growth, you're going to understand what is their recruitment process and how it's taking place. So join Julia. It's fascinating. Then, my friends, you can also join Lorraine. And Lorraine is the managing editor at Prezi. And she will introduce you a very simple way on how to stand out as a candidate. So using video and a lot of LinkedIn tips. She is the managing editor at Prezi, and actually at Prezi they've been building a tool dedicated for that. She was also an editor at LinkedIn for six years. Yes, and she's been working both in San Francisco and Hong Kong. She started her career as a messaging startup She started her career as a messaging startup funded. What am I saying? Sorry, guys. Anyway, jump on this workshop if you want to know how to stand out as a candidate. All right, next workshop, my friends. Next workshop with Robin. You've met Robin. Robin is the CEO and co-founder of HireSuite, and he will explain you how to build your outreach pipeline, and you will enjoy. It's concrete. It's based on real experience. So join Robin. You don't want to join Robin? You can join Mark. Mark is going to explain you how to create the perfect match beyond your startup value. Mark Avanzo works as a leadership consultant and executive coach at he used to work at McKinsey, and he will talk to us about the perfect match and really how to create. We're talking about culture here. He's a coach and facilitator. If you don't want to join Mark, you can join Jacques. Jacques is a chief revenue officer at Coptalis. And with Jacques, we're going to talk about how to create an inclusive culture for remote employees. One of the most important topics we've been discussing until now, I think. And you should really take care of that, of creating that, that path to make sure that you attract diverse employees. And if you don't want to join Jacques, you can join Raphael. Raphael is an engineering manager at Spendesk. We love Spendesk, and he will explain you how to onboard tech talent. So it's important. It's about onboarding. Raphael Moutard he will tell you all the secret about onboarding tech talent. He's a tech lead with 10 years experience, specialized in machine learning. He worked on synchronizing team, training new hires, and running technical interviews for the hiring process. All right. And now, if you don't want to join Raphael, you're joining Maud. Maud will explain you how to hire developers in niche market. She's a global HR manager at Fairmoney. And Maud is a passionate international HR talent manager. She is currently in charge of HR and talent team at Fairmoney. She leads international hiring and people management in emerging markets. She'll explain you how to hire developers in niche market. You know it because it's in the title. Let's go. And now, Maybe you will be so delighted to join Yob to learn how to navigate the complexity of global HR. You've seen Yob. Yob is a CEO at remote.com. He's been an amazing speaker on this panel we've had earlier. I think it's going to be super, super interesting. And right after that, we'll have a chat roulette. Oh my God, this event is too good. Oh la la. Okay, you have to choose, my friend. I know it's too hard. Yes, you have to choose. It's now. It's in Hopin. Enjoy and see you within 30 minutes. Bye-bye.